Yes, 18.
Okay, y'all ready? Are you all ready?
I guess we're ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought we were good.
You raise your hand. Let me know. Yeah.
Yes. There's 5.
There's 7 that's been pulled.
Yeah.
7.
Well, we have 5, 15, 18, 20, and 23.
5 and okay, are we ready?
You're doing great.
Good evening. We welcome you to our City Council meeting this afternoon. And if you could all have a seat, and we'll begin the meeting. This is a consolidated agenda we have tonight. We're considering City Council items as well as items from the Buena Sanitation District and also from our Community Development Commission or Redevelopment Agency. For those of you that are standing in the back, there are some seats up here in front, so if you'd like to come up and have a seat, that would be good. First thing we'll do is ask the city clerk if she'd like to acknowledge the fact that we're all here.
The record will reflect that all members are present.
Good. We're very pleased to have with us this evening Sister Maureen Brown of St. Thomas More, and she will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you'd all remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I invite you to take a moment to bring yourself, after a busy day, to this room, to take a moment of quiet. To open ourselves to the agenda for this evening and to find that core of peace within each of us where God dwells. Loving Creator, we thank you for the many gifts of this day, especially for the beautiful city to which we belong. We give you thanks for the dedication of this City Council and for those present here today who will speak in order to seek a better way of life for all residents of Vista. We pray in thanksgiving for all city employees, especially for the members of our fire departments who will be honored this evening, and for the younger members of our community who are the winners of the Fair Housing Poster Contest. We ask your blessings on this council and all those participating. Grace them with your wisdom and vision. Gift them with holy humor and humility, and the ability to really listen and hear each other for the benefit of all Vista residents. We ask all of this in your holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Brown. Okay, next we have the approval of the agenda. And under the approval of the agenda, are there any items to be added or deleted from the agenda?
There are no additions or deletions, Mayor.
Okay, I understand that we have a number of people that present who want to speak under oral communications regarding a county issue out in the Sunset Island area. I want to just let you know that oral communications is the last thing on the agenda, so that you'll be able to enjoy the entire meeting. And then if you'd like to fill out a speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk, then we'll be able to call on you at that time. Or else if you want to have one person represent you at that time under oral communications. We do this because we placed oral communications at the end of the meeting because we felt that those who have put things on the agenda and their items that have been agendized should be considered first before we hear from the audience that may have something that is not related to anything that we have on the agenda. So if any of you would like to do that, that would be great. We had a closed session prior to the meeting in which we considered matters of litigation and other items that are allowed under state law, and I'll ask the city attorney to give a report of that closed that closed meeting session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we did meet in closed session on the 3 items that are listed on this evening's closed session agenda. No action was taken that is required to be disclosed at this time, however. Thank you.
Okay, very good. We have 5 presentations this evening, a little more than normal, but I think that we'll enjoy these. I'd like to, first of all, go down to the podium, and we're going to make some awards for this city's winners of the Fair Housing Poster Contest. We have a number of young artists that are in the audience with us tonight, and we're very grateful to have them and their parents here, too. This year, it marks the 42nd anniversary of the Fair Housing Act, which prohibits discrimination in housing and housing-related transactions on the basis of race, color, national origin, religion, familiar status, and disability. As we have done in the last 14 years, the City of Vista has challenged the youth of the community to show us what fair housing means to them. And we do this with a fair housing poster contest. And over here you have those who made submittals and were successful. This year we had 127 entries in the contest, and we are proud of all those that participated. But tonight we want to acknowledge and award the top winners of this fair housing poster contest. We have 3 age categories. We have kindergarten to 2nd grade. And we have 3rd grade through 5th grade, and then 6th grade through the 8th grade. And every winner is going to receive a fun-filled glittery bag packed with art and school supplies. And then in addition to the bags filled with the art supplies, the first place winner will receive 2 season passes to the Wave Water Park. You're supposed to go, ooh. The second place winners will receive 1 season pass to the Wave. Oh, you got it. And the 3rd place winners will receive 2 day passes to the Wave Water and 2 Krikorian movie tickets. And those selected as our honorable mention winners will receive 2 Krikorian movie tickets. Now, if the following youngsters would come forward and receive their awards. Did you want to come up, Kelly, and help? Okay. Kelly Matthews is going to help. And Kelly, did you want to say something before we start?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and community friends. This is really my favorite time of year. The month of April, we celebrate it's called Fair Housing Month, and it's a nationwide celebration of all of our efforts to work on and promote fair housing and equal housing opportunities here in America. And as the mayor said, every year, annually, we provide this fair housing poster contest. The kids are given an opportunity to learn about fair housing and discrimination, and then to put what they've learned into their expression through these posters of what fair and equal housing opportunity means to them. One of the things I want to do is thank the Wave Water Park for their generous donations, the Krikorian Theaters, Sonic Drive-In, and also the Fair Housing Resource Board of San Diego, whose generous donation made these gift bags possible. And then finally, I want to give thanks to Teresa Graham. She's the Senior Housing Specialist and the staff of the Redevelopment and Housing Department, without whose help this event wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Okay, if we could have Jackie Shao. And next is Daniela Rojas. Brianna Hall. And now, first, second, third, and honorable mention. Diana Balonis. If you want to get a picture of you here. Okay, everyone look at the camera and smile. Okay, wait, we got parents. Okay, any other parent? Okay. Thank you. Next is the third grade through fifth grade. The first prize is Devin Copley. Devin. Okay. The second place is Nancy Villa. Next is Diana Mingos. And Tiffany Alvarado. Okay. Come on over. Thank you so much. Next is the 6th through 8th grade. The first prize, I've got a little something to say about the first prize, is Karen Ceballos. Karen, come on up. You want to share a little bit with Karen? Karen has submitted a winning poster each of the last 3 years. First of all, when she was 6, she had an honorable mention. And then that's when she was as a 6th grader. Then as a 7th grader, she got first place. And now she's got first place again as an 8th grader. Congratulations. Okay, second place is Kyle Braun. Kyle, congratulations. And third place is Melissa Sylvester. Melissa Sylvester. Okay. And then honorable mention is Mina Giles. Pardon? Okay, well, we've got time. Oh my goodness. Okay, come on, everyone turn around. Congratulations and thank you so much. Thank you. This is one of the fun things about being on the city council, is to be able to participate in programs like this, where the youth of the community comes forward and shows their talents and gets involved in some of the things that are very important to the community. And fair housing, of course, is something that is extremely important in the city of Vista. So I want to thank the youngsters that participated, and also their parents for their support of their young people. It's really gratifying to see. So thank you. The next presentation will be made by Councilmember Bob Campbell.
Marguerite. And we're going to bring the other ladies? Well, first we need to know what the Fire Safe Council is and what you've accomplished. It's been a lot.
Well, Helen is our president, and would love to have you come up here and explain what we do. And I'm more for the dedication. So, come girl, come girl.
Prepared for this.
It's okay. Just
What is our mission? Our mission is to educate people, particularly in regards to fire prevention. I'm sorry, I've been ill. I just got back into the country, so I wasn't prepared for this. Just basically to educate the public on the hazards of fire, how to prevent fire. Pardon me? Evacuation procedures and so forth and so on.
Thank you. You did a very good job. This group fills in a place that many of you also fill in, working on our commissions and various organizations that help the community, because without volunteerism and without your participation, we simply can't be as good a community as we are. I've known Marguerite Morgan for a few years, and I've watched her take leadership in the area of trying to make sure her community is safe, particularly with the wildfires that we've had, unfortunately, in San Diego County. I think the area that these ladies are working with are far better prepared than most. The residents are well informed, and they have the ability to take care of their own needs in time of an emergency, because government most likely won't be there to help them for at least a few days. So, Marguerite, tell us more about this.
okay. We are here basically to give instead of receive to the city of Vista. Yay! And in total, we're going to be giving a $20,000 grant towards the drought-tolerant and fire-wise garden at Station 1, which is at 175 North Melrose. And hopefully the public is invited on Saturday to the dedication, and come over and pick up a brochure on drought-tolerant and fire-wise plant material that you can take home and use as part of your defense program. So that's what we will be doing. And
Are you going to bring the check to the dedication, or did you bring it tonight?
I did not bring it tonight.
You did. Well, I think I can trust her on this. And please do come to the dedication. Mrs. Geldert, that is at what time, please?
That's at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. this Saturday, Fire Station 1 on Melrose, right adjacent to West Vista Way. And do pick up the brochure on Firewise, because I think many of you know our water rates are going to go up in the future. And if you're doing anything at all in your yards, now is the time to do it, because over time, the tiered water rate structure you wish you had. So, okay.
And we're looking for more chapters of the Fire Safe Council. It's not just in the district, it's also in the city of Vista. If you are interested, please give me a call or call the city, and they will forward to my telephone number, and I'll give you the information. Thank you.
Marguerite, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next I'd like to ask Fire Battalion Chief Rick Minnick and Deputy Fire Chief Don Shellhammer to please come forward. This really gives me a great deal of pleasure to present these letters of appreciation to, why don't you turn around so the camera can see you, and the audience can see you, to present these letters of appreciation to both of these individuals. They've been long-term and long-time members of the Vista Fire Department and have done just an outstanding job over the years. I've got to tell you something a little bit about the Vista Fire Department, and there's a very high-ranking hospital official that I will leave unnamed that told me one time, he said that if I ever get injured and it's outside the city of Vista, I'm going to drag myself into the city of Vista before I call the paramedics. That tells you what kind of a fire department that we really have, and they just work tremendously hard to make the community what it is, and so we're so grateful for them. Well, one of the things that they do, the reason they're so good is that they continually train. And so there's a new program that came out. It's a pilot program, and I'll read a little bit about it, but it was specific training for the executives within the fire department. Now, the city manager and I got to participate in that program one day, and it was really a tremendous program, and we were really grateful to see just what these gentlemen went through in order to go through the entire training program and training exercise. So we have two letters of appreciation. Now, mysteriously, they're both a lot alike, so I'm going to read one. And did you want to say anything, Chief Fisher?
I would just give a lot of kudos to these two chief officers. They spent a lot of time before the class started. The class ran for several weeks, and they're still doing post-class projects. So it's an ongoing effort. So they've done a great job.
Let me read one of the letters and to give you an indication of what they did. And this was the one to Chief Shellhammer. It says, on behalf of the Vista City Council, I want to express our congratulations on your successful graduation of the pilot class of the Executive Fire Chief course conducted by the Regional Training Center of San Diego. Through diverse exposure to various levels of government, this course offered real problems which the fire service faces each day. The solutions required on-hands, in-depth comprehension of the peripheral issues and unintended consequences which could result. As a pilot class, your participation, evaluation, and feedback provided the course developers the ability to make the curriculum even more valuable. Your involvement in the pilot class will help many future fire chief candidates who will follow behind you. One of the major endeavors of the city, and specifically the fire department, is succession planning. Over the next 7 years, it is estimated that we will see the retirement of some 30% of our senior fire service executives. By participating in this class, you have improved your knowledge and decision-making abilities and have enhanced your managerial skills in your present position. In addition, you have taken a significant step to better prepare yourself for the future position of fire chief. As mayor, I want to formally express how proud the elected officials of this city are of your efforts and of the fire department by making Vista a safer place to live. Thank you for a job well done. I've got to get a picture. We do have a proclamation declaring May 21st, 2010 as Bike to Work Day in the city of Vista. I'm going to ask one of our avid city council bikers, Steve Gronke, to present this to our Sandag representative, Judy Ritter.
I have a proclamation here that I'd like to read. Again, May is National Bike Month, and May 21st of 2010 is National Bike to Work Day. Whereas biking is a proven emission-free transportation alternative that reduces traffic congestion, improves mobility, and provides an alternative to driving alone. And whereas promotion of our support of biking to work improves the region's economic prosperity and quality of life. And whereas the Bike to Work Day is a day-long event on Friday, May 21st of 2010, that promotes bicycle commuting, safety, and driver awareness. And whereas the SANDAG, or the San Diego Association of Governments, is sponsoring Bike to Work Day to recognize biking to work and to promote employer and commuter participation for this day and throughout the year. And whereas San Diego area employers can improve mobility and reduce emissions in the region by offering incentives to employees to encourage biking to work and other alternatives to solo commute. And whereas SANDAG area commuters can reduce their weekly solo commute trips and demands placed on this region's roadways by 20% by choosing to commute alternatives like biking. Now, therefore, the mayor and the members of the Vista City Council do hereby proclaim Friday, May 21st of 2010 as Bike to Work Day in the city of Vista. Anyone want to say anything?
Yeah, that's a week from Friday, so I'd like to encourage everyone to ride their bike to work. It will be good exercise, saves the air quality, saves gas, get you a little exercise for the day, so I would like to encourage everyone to do that.
We have another avid biker up here that would like to say something. That's Bob Campbell.
Yeah.
Well, I cheat. I use an electric bike. But I would like to add that you're not cheating if you use the Breeze, the Sprinter, and the Coaster as part of your commute to work with your bicycle. We encourage you to consider those forms of transportation along with your bicycle, and I think you'll enjoy the ride.
Thank you very much. The last presentation that we have at this council meeting is a presentation of Art in Vista, and this is a film by Charles Bronson, who is one of our artists here in the city of Vista. Now, Charles, were you going to come introduce this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to thank you guys for allowing this to be shown. As you know, I'm one of the founding members of the Vista Art Foundation, and the reason I did this is because 7 years ago I came in front of you guys and kind of stressed the importance of art. And so now, all these years later, we've made a difference in the city thanks to the city and a lot of dedicated volunteers and benefactors. So I created this film. I wanted you to be the first to see it, but it took a couple months to get through the art commission, and it's been on YouTube for 3. So a little late, but here we go. Thanks.
Do we have sound? Why don't you hold it up just a minute? Can you pause it? Okay, Charles, there is supposed to be sound with this. Let's ask our AV specialist, Patrick Johnson, if he's out there, to come forward and help us. Patrick he's our assistant city manager, and he can do anything.
We might put in a plug for. Don't you have a show this weekend, Charles? You might come up here and while Patrick's fixing that. And Charles used to work for Disney also, so you might want to tell a little bit of your history and your show.
And over at the Vista Art Foundation, we have Gallery 204 on Main Street, which is 204 Main. And this Saturday night from 6 to 9, we're having a reception and art show. I'm showing my art along with my brother Gary, the first time in all these years that we've ever shown together. We're ex-Disney artists. We're going to show some of what our past life used to be and some photographs plus the new art that we're doing. And we encourage the whole community to please come on by because we are a nonprofit. And also the kids' work today was just great. I'm glad to see that. So,
do we have a solution? Well, I can guarantee you in the new city hall it's going to work better. Did you want to narrate it as we go along?
It really doesn't need narration.
Okay.
It's a little 4-minute journey.
Okay, let's just go ahead and do it then. Remember the giant well. Bet you're all familiar with the kite projects that we've had in around town for the last couple of years. This is our Vista in Bloom. Yep. Thank you very much. Yes, we're very proud of all of the artists that we have and all the art that is available through the various mediums here in Vista. And so thank you very much, Mr. Bronson. The next item on the council agenda is the consent calendar. These are items that can be considered by one vote of the city council, and unless they're pulled from the agenda, we have items, let's see, how far do we go on this one? We go up through item number 23 from C1 to 23. Now, before I read off the ones that are going to be pulled from the agenda thus far, I'd like the city attorney to read something about members of the city council that may have to recuse themselves from voting on various items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the benefit of the audience, California law under the Fair Political Practices Act and City of Vista's Proposition V assumes that in certain circumstances, members of the council should not vote on items that could potentially affect them personally. And we call those statutory conflicts of interest. It doesn't matter whether it's really would be a conflict or not. The law assumes it would be, so the council members will recuse themselves for those matters. For matters that are on the consent calendar and that are not pulled, it's enough to simply announce that the council member will be shown in the minutes as having recused himself or herself from those items. So on this evening's consent calendar, item number C10, Councilman Lopez and Councilman Campbell will recuse themselves from the second reading of the ordinance. On item number C13 and C14, Councilman Lopez will recuse himself. These are all because of property ownership interests that they have within the areas in question. And also, Councilman Lopez will recuse himself on item number C19, the South Santa Fe drainage project. And I believe item C18 has been pulled, so we'll make an announcement at the time when that one comes up to be heard.
Okay, let me read the ones I have that have been asked either by the audience or by members of the council. Item C5, which is the 2010-2015 regional analysis of impediments to fair housing. Item C15, which is the construction management services contract. Next is C18, which is the 2010-2011 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. C20, which is the property acquisition of 123 to 219 South Santa Fe Avenue. And then item 23, which is land acquisition of 1234 South Santa Fe and the acquisition and relocation agreement of 321 South Santa Fe Avenue. Are there any other items that the council would like to pull from the agenda? Okay, I have no other items that the council would, or that the audience has requested to be pulled either.
I'm going to abstain from C23 because of the appearance of a conflict.
Okay.
That item, how we do it? Okay. Okay. C23.
Yeah, we'll wait till we get to that point. Okay, is there a motion to adopt or to approve the remaining portion of the...
I'll go ahead and make the motion for approval of the remainder consent calendar.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. And that passes unanimously. So all those items that we did not pull have been adopted and passed. Okay, we'll go to the very first item, which is C5, which is the 2010-2015 Regional Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing. So Mr. Rollins, our redevelopment director.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Bill Rawlings, Director of Redevelopment and Housing, and with me tonight is Kathy Valdez, who has a short presentation on this item, if you wish.
I'll ask first, does council want a presentation on this item? It's rather large, and I didn't know if you just wanted to go to questions or if you wanted a presentation.
I don't have any questions. Does who? Okay, then who pulled it? Mr. Campbell?
I have, yeah, thank you. The question I have is that yesterday, Mrs. Ritter gave a check to the state of California for $5.4 million? $6.4 million. Out of our redevelopment funds for what I believe was for 5.4 was for housing. And it concerns me that that's obviously could not be in the staff report, but as an impediment to our ability to perform in terms of providing low moderate housing. Do you foresee this as a problem, and if so, how much?
Certainly, Councilmember Campbell, anytime that we lose access to resources that we can use to improve the community, specifically in the housing area, it's definitely a blow. It's not a positive thing that happens, and it certainly will impact our ability to move forward with the various programs and projects that we have.
And do you expect we'll be getting this money back from the state? And as I understand, they did this to balance their own budget.
I've learned not to expect anything when it comes to this to the state. I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it may very well be gone for good.
So is it possible they'll do this again next year?
In fact, the law that they're using to take it this time does provide specifically for an additional take next year of about $1.1 million.
So the ability
That's already a done deal.
For us to create housing and develop jobs and improve our economic development in the community is just vanished by that amount of money.
That's correct.
Well, it really saddens me to see that. I know, Mrs. Gelder, you've worked hard with, as has Mrs. Ritter, with California Redevelopment Association and League of Cities to avoid this type of thing, but this to me is very, very disappointing.
I'm going to appeal the lawsuit.
We are? Okay. That really was my question, because I know an awful lot of work has gone into this, and all of a sudden we just took a lot of money out of the pot.
I think Mr. Gronky has a comment.
Just a comment, Mayor. You know, in these hard economic times, I didn't realize how bad it was until I was looking through this document, and on one of the pages they talk about percentage of housing with problems, and in the rental market, it appears to be about 53% of the people have some kind of financial distress because of the economy. About 35% of people that own homes, which a total of 43% of all the people that live within the county, are in some kind of financial distress because of housing, and I find that really sad. So I just hope things will turn as quickly as possible.
And Mayor, if I might, just we saw in the records that housing sales had increased here in the last couple of months, but I think that was largely driven by an 8% tax credit for first-time home buyers, and we won't expect that to continue going forward for some time, and the housing recovery is going to be relatively slow. And I'm told by experts this is not the last of the problems we'll be seeing with housing.
Yeah. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, do we have a motion to adopt the resolution? Okay, Mr. Campbell and Mr. Lopez, please cast your votes. Okay, and that resolution was adopted unanimously. We'll next go to item number 15, which is construction management services. Mr. Larry Pierce, our city engineer.
Again, I don't know if you wanted to report. I don't think. Okay, just questions from Councilman
It's really
Gronky.
more of a statement than a question.
Okay.
I just want to thank management for working with the staff to retain some of the work and responsibilities in-house rather than outsourcing these items. In these times of economic hardship, this council has had to make several decisions that have impacted the lives of staff that we had to release. And I hope that management will continue to work and keep activities in-house as we look at all of our major capital improvement projects into the future. So.
Okay, great, thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, someone please make a motion.
Make a motion for that.
Okay, do we have a second? A motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Okay, very good. The next item is C18, which is the 2010-2011 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. Now, to save, our city attorney has a comment.
Yes. Following on our earlier theme, in the case of this particular agenda item, two members of our city council have statutory conflicts of interest because they serve on various boards, one for Angels Depot and one for the Vista Community Clinic. And in order to deal with this matter because it is no longer on the consent calendar. Councilman Gronke and Councilman Ritter will leave the dais and retire to an adjoining room, at which point we will ask for any public comment on Angels Depot and the Vista Community Clinic. And once any testimony on those is heard, then the three remaining members of the City Council can vote on those two particular appropriations. And when that's done and final, then Councilman Gronke and Councilwoman Ritter can return and discuss the rest of the items. It's just that they cannot vote or participate on the discussion on those two particular items. So,
for those of you that are in the audience, we annually receive an allocation of community development block grant funds, and we have a responsibility as a council then to distribute those funds in a number of different categories. One of the categories that probably most people are interested in are those for social services. And so we're here tonight to finalize that and to make our designations for the distribution of those funds to these various social service agencies, as well as the other categories, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but what we've talked about quite often. We have two individuals that would like to speak to this, so why don't we hear from them first, and then we'll discuss or answer any questions that any member of the council might have. First, pardon?
if no one is speaking on the Angels Depot,
I don't think either one of these are.
Then the board can go ahead and vote on that item, and then our two other
I'd like to
council
vote on
members can return.
Angels Depot, and the other one was Vista Community Clinic.
I move to support that.
Okay. Second. We have a motion and a second, so please cast your votes. Marcy? Mr. Lopez, you want to try it again? Okay, I'll vote again. Okay. Okay, that vote is unanimous of those that are on the dais at the present time. So if we could have the other members of the City Council come back now. Come back. Okay, we have two individuals that have requested to speak, and first is Dennis Chamberlain.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Dennis Chamberlain, and I'm here on behalf of North County's Food Bank this evening. Wanted to express our appreciation and our gratitude for your continued support of North County's Food Bank. We are clearly in some challenging economic times, and more individuals than ever are dealing with food insecurity at a level that they've never before had to deal with. And the support from the City of Vista will allow North County's Food Bank to provide 543 monthly unduplicated individuals with over 28,224 meals throughout the year. And that is going to make a huge difference in their lives. And so on behalf of those folks whom you don't know, they certainly appreciate it. And as an organization, your assistance allows us to help more people. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next would be Reginald Washington.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I just want to say thank you for your support in our program. I was just looking at the North County Times, and our program's on the headline right here for working with kids. And I don't know if you guys had a chance to take a look at this, but, we thank you guys so much. We had our kids out at Guahomie Park at the academy today for the first time working on teamwork, using the mentoring skills that we gave them throughout our 12-week program. And we just thank you guys for our support, and you guys have definitely been helpful. Our program is from the inside out with Priscilla Alvarez and myself, Reginald Washington, for the AWARE program. And we just thank you for your continued support. Thank you very much.
We have a number of wonderful organizations throughout the community that aid various segments of the community, and our hardest job is to allocate this money and to divide it up because we don't have a lot of it, and other levels of government have kind of abdicated their responsibility for social services, and so as a result, it's very difficult for us to allocate this money in the sense that we'd like to have every one of the organizations get everything they ask for because they're so worthy of receiving it, but unfortunately not all do. But we do appreciate the opportunity to participate in this program. Now there Mr. Lopez, you're first up.
Thank you, Mayor. Is the group by some chance that makes a decision on this here tonight?
I was just going to mention that the community...
Here, would you please stand?
Yes.
We'd like to thank you for all the work that you do. I guess there's no one here.
Harvey Bush. Harvey, stand up. Harvey,
Mr. Bush is here.
Thank you. I would just like to thank you. Thank you for all the hard work that you do. Okay.
Yeah, they assist the city council by making recommendations to us about which groups we should fund. Is that all?
That's it.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Mr. Lopez. Do we have a second? I'll second. We have a motion and a second to adopt City Council Resolution 2010 next in order, approving the CBDG Public Service Program for 2010-11, and also adopt City Council Resolution 2010 next in order, approving the 2010-2011 Annual Action Plan. So please cast your votes. And that's adopted unanimously. And we want to thank our staff as well. They've done a marvelous job, as they have done every year, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next is item number C20, which is a property acquisition on South Santa Fe, and that's at 123 to 219 South Santa Fe.
Councilman Campbell, would you like a report on this, or would you like to just ask your questions?
Oh, Mr. Rollins, so good to see you again.
Good evening.
Just from a historical perspective on this property, it's had multiple uses over time. And when I was doing your job, we had an opportunity to acquire the land and found there's probably issues that you'll want to remediate or see remediated. How is that being handled? As the buildings look very nice right now, but what do you anticipate doing as next steps?
As we move forward with the Paseo Santa Fe project, one key element of that is assembling the land. When we do that, we reach agreement with the seller of the property. One of the things that we go through is what we call our due diligence period, where we explore a lot of different elements to determine that it's appropriate to move forward with the purchase. One of those items is an environmental assessment of the property. We do that on all the properties that we propose to purchase, and in fact, we have done it on this site. And the goal of that is to identify if there are any remediation issues that need to be taken care of, any type of contamination, and then put in place a plan to deal with that as part of the purchase or on a longer-term basis. In addition, we are undertaking a area-wide study of the entire Paseo Santa Fe area that will give us a benchmark for all of the properties at one point when that's concluded.
Okay. I think everybody would be interested in knowing what I know you've been working on this for some time, but what is our eventual use for that land?
One of the ideas that we're exploring now, although there's been no final decision, is for a park, a linear park, which would be an entrance to the Paseo Santa Fe area. Again, it's in the preliminary idea phase right now, and would present an opportunity for access to the Paseo from the northern end.
Did it not have a specialized potential as a park to commemorate something?
There has been discussion within the Paseo Santa Fe and another location near Guajome Street for a remembrance for a member of the Pinamani family, and there have been discussions in the past with the city about doing that. In looking at that further, a couple of things came to mind. One was that particular parcel on near Guajome was more isolated, harder to get to. And so the opportunity for a park there wasn't quite as strong as this parcel that we're talking about tonight at 123 to 219, which would make it a prominent feature within the community. And so in talking with the Pinamani family, we are exploring the possibility of moving the park from the Guajome area to this area, and that's one of the options that's being considered.
Okay, and if you were to consider it for future commercial use, I believe the depth of the properties almost precludes that by current standards, would it not, for parking? And
there are challenges, including the size of the lot, for future development on the site along the lines that we're exploring, i.e. mixed use for the Paseo Santa Fe. The depth would definitely be a challenge, and there would be other challenges such as parking and those types of things, yes.
Well, with the thought this could be really a spectacular entrance to Paseo Santa Fe, I'm very much in support of it, but I do have one question about the financial options you've presented here. Mm-hmm. Whenever it's possible, and I know that the public is always questioning, what are you doing with this money? This is redevelopment money. It's tax increment money that we've earned in our community. And we have an option in your report of either possibly doing it with interest or just paying cash on it. I would like to suggest that if it's possible that we pay cash and avoid potentially about $300,000 in potential interest. So we could save that as far as our ability for bonding and further projects.
It's certainly possible to do that in this case. The way we've structured the agreement allows us the flexibility from a cash flow point of view to push the entire purchase price into the future so that we have maximum flexibility as far as timing from a cash flow point of view. Of course, when we do that, it comes at a cost, which you pointed out, of the interest on the loan, if you will. We are not precluded, however, to prepay that loan, and so if we were to go forward with the agreement as it's structured tonight, we would still maintain that flexibility, but could certainly pay it in full to begin with and avoid the cost. So we have both of those options built into the existing agreement.
Mayor, thank you. I'd like to make a motion after you've heard from the other council members.
Sure. No, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Timing is what it's all about with the city, you know, and so I think Mr. Rollins has a handle on that particular property. But I'd like to say something about that piece of property, is that it is a narrow piece of property, and I think it's a perfect spot for eventually putting that park in, and it I don't know where you got the idea from, but I think it's a great idea. Mr. Rollins, you've done a good job there, and I've got to hand it to you. But I think that'll be a nice park to bring people from the Kokorian and also from the Sonic area where they can meander through there and hopefully have trees and park tables there where people can enjoy that downtown vista. So I think it's a great future in
Mr. Ritter.
a couple years to come. Thank you.
I think it's a good idea also. I think it'd be adjacent to the rail trail, so that would also help and be a nice amenity. But as far as, I'd like to leave the flexibility in for them to, as far as cash flow goes, they're paying cash, because I know we can probably pay it at any point, pay cash for it, but I think I'd like to leave the flexibility in for them to do what they think is best. Well, so I would like to put that out there.
Mr. Gronke.
I like Mr. Campbell's idea about using cash up front. It certainly seems appropriate in the time when the state is taking all of our money as quickly as possible, that we try to utilize that money as quickly as possible, particularly in the Paseo Santa Fe area too. So I think it's a good call.
Okay. Do I have a motion? And I think that the motion that's on the floor is to adopt the community development resolution number 2010 Nora, approving a revised purchase and sales agreement for the property located at the address. Now, I need a motion.
I'll make that motion, sir.
Okay, we have a second. and I'm sure that the staff will come back with recommendations as to financing at some future time. Okay, please cast your votes. And that's adopted unanimously. The last item on the consent calendar that we have to consider is item number C23, which is land acquisition of 1234 South Santa Fe Avenue and the acquisition and relocation agreement for 321 South Santa Fe Avenue. Again, do you have any need for a report, or would you like to have, you have a need for a report?
No, I have a need to recuse myself
Okay.
for the appearance of a conflict of interest, so that would be, so do I need to leave the room, right? Yes,
You do.
okay.
Okay, we have some individuals that would like to speak to this. This is for the acquisition of the property known as the American Legion Hall, and there's another property that is south on the left-hand side of the South Santa Fe going down, which is a former restaurant. And those are two that we're acquiring. And you want to hear the individuals from the audience? Okay, first of all, we'll hear from Chris Yates.
Council members, thank you for having us this evening. We're really excited about this deal for obvious reasons, but just to
Chris,
talk-
you want to identify who you're talking
I'm sorry.
about when you say we?
We, yeah, I'm sorry. My name's Chris Yates, and I'm with the American Legion Post 365 here in Vista, California. I'm here on behalf of 500-plus outstanding American citizens that has supported our nation in one way or another throughout the years. Our major function is to support veterans and their families, promote Americanism, and support children and youth. We do that through very many different venues. As all the council members and many of the city staff know, annually we have a Veterans Day ceremony, Memorial Day ceremony. Some years we have two of each, depending on whether the city is putting something on in downtown Vista. We recognize our law officers, fire department, once a year at a law and order breakfast or dinner. Every year we have three junior high school girls and boys which we send to Sacramento annually to attend California Girls and Boys State. There's several other things that we support. The Wounded Warriors out at Camp Pendleton, the American Legacy Scholarship Fund, which gives scholarship monies to students who lost a parent in the war on terror. With the property that we have now at 321 South Santa Fe, we have over the years dumped an exorbitant amount of money in trying to make it more appealing, but more importantly, more accessible to many of our veterans, and it's just getting to be a lost cause with the inevitable redevelopment of the Santa Fe area, and with that decaying building. We have 3 floors. It's very hard for many of our veterans to negotiate those things, and we just think the opportunity at 123 South Santa Fe presents us with the parking, the accessibility, and an area where we can better perform our duties and functions for the community. So we thank you for your time, we thank you for the opportunity, and we hope that we can get a favorable vote for the proposition at hand. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next is Teresa Moore.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Teresa Moore. I'm with the American Legion as well, and I would just like to take this opportunity to thank you for your consideration of this acquisition. This will allow the American Legion Post 365 to continue to provide the much-needed services to our vets and family members and our community efforts to sponsor Americanism, children and youth programs such as Boys and Girls State and Law and Order functions. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you. Ted Caligari? Caligari.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Ted Caligari. I'm with Coldwell Banker Commercial. I represent the owner of the property at 1234 South Santa Fe, and they are very happy to see this on the agenda. Finally, they've been waiting for almost a year, holding use of their property to alternative restaurants and the like to support this process. And I know I've personally gotten very involved with the American Legion. I understand how important this is, and I just want to thank you for that opportunity from the owner.
Thank you. Okay, Council, Mr. Campbell, you have a comment or a question?
Well, I do. First off, Mayor, I believe we probably have a number of members here in the audience. Could be okay to ask them to stand? I'd like to be able to recognize them.
Sure.
Would you all stand, please, that belong to the American Legion Post? On behalf of the council, I'd like to thank you for your service and your dedication to our community and the country. Thank you very much. And Chris, especially you for your good work. I had two questions of Mr. Rawlings, if I could. Mr. Rawlings, the building, as Mr. Yates has pointed out, is a challenge to maintain even in its present condition, let alone restore it. What do you think will be the disposition of the property if it's acquired?
The interest of the redevelopment agency in acquiring the building is to facilitate the further development of the Paseo Santa Fe project. As such, it would require we're trying to assemble the land so that we can create larger projects, and so the property would need to be level and without the building there, and so it would require the demolition of the property.
So after a reasonable period of relocation and their opportunity to fix up 1, 2, 3, 4, then we'd be pursuing making sure this is shuttered and appropriately demolished in a reasonable amount of time?
Yes.
Okay, I think that makes sense. Just as you may not or may not be well aware, at some time in the past, this was listed as being a building of interest. And I don't think, Mr. Yates, that you has the Post continued that relationship with the listing people that are looking at older buildings? So they've not contacted you, so I shouldn't worry about that then. Okay, so I would say that should be off the table then, because there's been plenty of opportunity to speak to that, and I don't think it makes any sense anyway. My question, and I hope the American Legion members will understand my bringing it forth, the redevelopment agency, in order to do projects, leverages what we earn here in the community using bond proceeds. And that's very, very important so we can get more done in a reasonable amount of time. And then, of course, that's paid off over time using the tax increment. My belief is, and Mr. Rawlings and Mrs. Gelder, you can correct me, that we're paying something in the order of 6%, I think, currently on that money, are we not? Yes. And I have just one request. I think the way you put together this financing package is very novel, creative, and certainly recognizes the tremendous contribution of the organization to the community. But I would like to, for paper purposes only, not expecting any direct payment at this time, but to see the interest imputed and accrued at a rate that reflects what the agency is having to pay for money. And I don't think that impacts the organization one way or the other, quite frankly. And I wonder if you or Mrs. Gelder would want to react to that.
That's certainly possible to do. Yes, we could certainly structure to have the loan that I think you're mentioning, the loan to match what our cost of funds are.
But there's no expectation they'll be paying you interest today or tomorrow, and then certainly until there's some other action takes place on the project.
The way the agreement is structured is, as long as it's used as a Legion Hall and is not sold to a third party, the note is not due or payable. Okay. And it would accrue interest at 0% unless prepaid.
Okay. I'm hoping that all property values will go up in the future, and I hope they'll be in 1, 2, 3, 4 for very many years to come. But I think under fairness and level playing field with other agencies, that it would be only fair to impute the interest at the cost of the agency for borrowing that same money. And I'd make a motion to approve this item with that stipulation.
Mr. Rocky, did you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Okay, do we have a motion then? I'm sorry. I was reading those. Who was the second?
Didn't get one yet.
Well, let's have one.
He wants it with this stipulation on.
Okay, here.
I think we're here to discuss.
Okay, we don't have a motion. Give a second.
If I hear the motion right, you're asking that the money be borrowed at present rates, available to any other agency.
If I'm reading the terms of the agreement correctly, this would just be imputed and accrued, not actually required to be paid, unless there's some future sale or disposition of the 1, 2, 3, 4 property. Am I
That's correct.
So the property at 1234 has to be bought up by another agency, or the American Legion needs to cease to exist as a nonprofit?
The purpose of the loan is to facilitate the Legion's existence, and so if that changes, then the loan would become due and payable.
So all we're saying is you just want to structure the loan in such a way.
Yeah, it's really not meant to damage the relationship or the cost to the Legion. It's simply a matter to set a policy and precedent if, should this ever arise before the council in the future.
Okay. I'll agree with that.
Okay, then.
I'll second the motion.
Second the motion. Mr. Lopez?
So it will not damage the existing contract with them, correct?
The existing contract would have to be changed, but it can be changed. It's a minor change. It could be done very quickly, yes.
Will the other party stop the contract over this decision?
I don't know the answer to that question. I think, and I defer to the city attorney. But if that's the action that's taken, then it would require us, I believe, then to approach them and ask them if they agreed. Then we would have to modify the agreement. It would be modified. It would be executed by the city as of tonight. Then they would have to re-execute.
Mr. Lopez, there's no additional cost to the Legion. There's no. It's strictly a paper transaction. I wouldn't be doing it if there was damage to the union.
Are you through, Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Gronke?
Mr. Rollins, I understand that you'll have to go back and renegotiate this contract in order for them to agree to the new terms.
The Legion has executed the contract that's before you tonight, which includes the provisions as structured. If the contract is changed tonight, then we would need to go back and discuss their re-approval of the agreement with the change in it.
Can we have, I'd like to have someone that represents them, but I guess this is not the appropriate time for that to occur.
Mr.
Did you want to weigh in? Okay. How long would the process take?
We would approach them immediately, see if we can reach agreement on the item, and ask them to re-execute the document a day.
Okay. Mr. Piper?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. If the council adopts the motion, as long as the American Legion is comfortable with the change, it would not need to come back to the council. It would simply be a change in a page, re-execution of the signatures, the city could sign, and the transaction would be closed. If, for any reason, they were uncomfortable with that, then the matter would have to come back at that point.
Okay, do we have anyone here that's authorized to speak for the American Legion?
Thank you, Member. Mayor, council members, if we're talking about the interest on the loan, if we sell to somebody we're not supposed to or just outside, that number of 4% goes to 6%. Is that how I understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I believe that we can agree to that this evening, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we do have a motion and we do have a second.
Okay.
Mr. Lopez, did you have a further comment? No. Okay, please cast your votes. Okay, and that's adopted unanimously by those that are on the dais. Okay, Mrs. Ritter, if you'd please come back, we'll go to discussion item number 1. Okay, discussion item number 1, which is Recreation and Community Services Facility Rental and Program Fees. Mr. Fortmuller.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Bill Fortmuller, Assistant Director, Recreation and Community Services. Also in attendance in the audience tonight, Jim Howe, the Interim Director of Public Works, and Chuck Chris, the Operations Manager, who also assisted in the preparation of this report. At the workshop on April 6, Council requested additional information on the ways to reduce the Recreation and Community Service Department General Fund subsidy. In the Recreation Division, we are proposing to raise the day camp fees for residents from $121 to $139, and for non-residents, 145 to 167. We estimate this will result in an increase in self-sufficiency of the program from 61% to 73%. It still provides a service with a competitive fee when compared to the public and private sector. At the Rancho Buena Vista Adobe, we will raise the Adobe Days education program fee $1 for both residents and non-residents. This will increase the revenue in that division by $4,000, and the self-sufficiency from 59% to 65%. Per your request at the April 6th workshop, we're raising the parking fee for the 4th of July from $8 to $10, which will increase the revenue to help offset the cost of that event by $1,400. At the, we also propose to increase the rental fee for the new community room at the Civic Center, and we're raising it $20 for Group A, and accordingly, as you see down on the graph here. And we're proposing this increase due to the amenities provided at this facility and the desire to keep this facility in its current condition. Another item considered on the April 6th workshop was a revision to the city policy on fees charged to youth sports groups. In the past, youth sports leagues were charged only for lights and off-season use of the fields. By off-season, I'm referring to winter ball for Little League and competitive play for the soccer leagues. As shown on Exhibit 1, the projected cost to the city for use of the athletic fields, go all the way to the last, just 3 slides there, is $344,700 without lights. The second column on the far left depicts the projected cost per player per league for fiscal year 2010-2011. Staff proposes to recover 15% of these costs for recreational leagues by charging a flat fee of $14 per person, which is a recovery rate of 25% for competitive leagues by charging a flat rate of $23. And these rates are highlighted in yellow. What you're seeing right now is the recreational league, and the next slide would be the competitive league. The charge for lighted fields would be an additional $9.15 per hour for both recreational and competitive leagues. With the 15 and 25% recovery, we estimate would recover a total of $59,233. We propose implementing these new fees for fiscal year 2010-2011 winter-spring leagues, softball, Little League, Pony Colt, and soccer. Leagues that are currently underway or already have collected registration fees would not be impacted until they take their next sign-ups. Current fees will remain in effect until that time. Additionally, staff will return to the council each year with an evaluation and recommendation to the fee structure. In terms of the cultural arts program, the council asks us to return with additional information related to the city's subsidy of the Moonlight Amphitheater. Council had asked if there was a way to determine the economic benefit of cultural arts to the community. Due to the timing, we were unable to provide information related to the Moonlight Amphitheater in Vista, but we were able to find information from an organization called Americans for the Arts, which surveyed the cities on this slide as the additional dollars each ticket to a cultural event brought to the respective city. You see it's Pasadena, Glendale, Walnut Creek. Some of these obviously couldn't equate to Vista in terms of overnight lodging in relation to these other cities, but on the average, the additional amount spent per person per ticket when attending a cultural event in those cities was $32. Council also asked that we look at other cities' cultural arts levels of self-sufficiency. As you can see, Moonlight falls about in the middle of these different levels of self-sufficiency. I would add that all these theaters are indoor theaters. They've been established theaters and have a very good reputation, so they've been in existence a long time. Since the new theater has opened, we're seeing a lot of interest in rentals, and so I think our self-sufficiency will also go up from rental income as well. Lastly, the council asked for suggestions how to reduce the subsidy. We looked at a variety of options for the winter and summer season. It appears we can lower the subsidy by $142,000 by offering a forced show in the summer and maintain the winter season, or at a forced show in the summer, eliminate the winter season and reduce full-time staff by 1 position to reduce the subsidy by $126,000. If the decision is made to add a forced show to the summer season, we will need to add $161,000 to this year's budget because the additional show would be scheduled in June. Council asked staff to look at the operation of the Wave Water Park. At this time, we recommend no changes to its operation, and we will come back to the council in December after evaluating the season. Tonight, we are asking for firm direction on how to proceed with the recreation fees and whether a forced show should be added to the Moonlight season. We will return at the end of May at a public hearing for formal approval of the direction given tonight. That concludes my report, and I'm ready to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I have a number of people that would like to speak on this. Would you like to hear from them first before you? I see your light. I was just asking the question. Okay, not getting an answer, then Mr. Lopez, you're first.
So I'd like to attorney about this. I believe I just realized I think I have a conflict of interest here because of my North San Diego County Football Club. North San Diego Football Club is my daughter's.
Councilman Lopez, I don't believe that you have a legal conflict of interest, but you might wish to recuse yourself nonetheless, just
I think I better.
in light of the community.
I mean, I think I better because I just, doesn't look good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, again, then you'd like to hear from those that have submitted. First of all, we'll ask Ted Cole.
Honorable Mayor, Honorable City Council members, Ted Cole, 1115 Marine View Drive, Vista, 92881. Having served, as you are, but having served 8 years behind that very dais, and to this day, I still quite can't understand the only way of raising monies is by either raising fees or taxes. It just seems to be the easiest way to do it. As a taxpayer, as all of us are taxpayers, we all pay more today than we paid yesterday for less services than we received yesterday. Well, now the less has reached a point where our kids, once again, their quality of life is being challenged. If this fee increase of $14 per player passes, as modest as 15% of cost recovery sounds, you will in reality double the actual dollar amount to $28 per player when the school district adopts the exact same policy and fee structure. That is $28 less in the pockets of families to spend in our fair city. And when it comes to the travel teams, the competitive teams, that's $46 less per family. Let me remind the council that consumer spending is a critical factor in the equation of working out of an economic crisis. It's not consumer taxation that will get us out of an economic crisis. So, as far as this particular item is concerned, what are the options? One, we can close down the fields and everyone loses. Two, we can roll over as youth organizations and accept the fees as a new way of life, which on an annual basis can be reviewed and increased, and I will give the benefit of the doubt, could decrease, but very rarely do you ever see a decrease ever occur. Three, the youth organizations representing the 3,700 players in the city of Vista could form a nonprofit coalition of youth sports organizations in order to lobby for community development block grant funding. I'm sure that it would be easy for this organization to demonstrate that well over 60% of the members of these players, the families of these players, would qualify the federal government guidelines of low-income earnings of $66,000 a year for a family of four. In fact, probably 70% of the city of Vista qualifies. But that in itself would then pit us against the many organizations that receive CDBG funding. And we don't want that to happen. Four, declaring equality of life as a public interest, as legal counsel for Governor Schwarzenegger did recently in taking redevelopment funds. Perhaps legal counsel here for the city could make findings that the city council could approve, that if I were to take the figure of $13 million expended in the past 6 to 8 months in property acquisitions and take 1% of that, that would more than cover the $130,000 that staff is looking to address just in this issue. 1%. But once again, it takes an interest. Or, number 5, which I think is probably the most reasonable, and I hope that City Council would direct staff to work with us. That would be, we can help, as organizations, the city out and keep costs down through the method each of our organizations run, and that's through volunteerism. Too often in the past, our offers to help were thwarted by bureaucratic regulations or union agreements. Perhaps now is the time to start using common sense and let a community show what it can do during hard times. Let us help with our labor. Let us buy the seed and fertilizer for the field renovations. Let us do what we do best, and that's volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly,
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Thank you for letting me come speak to you tonight. Again, my name is Holly Aguilera. I represent Vista American Little League. I'm on the board there and have been for a number of years. As many of you know, Vista American was one of the first Little Leagues in the community of Vista, formed way back in 1967. We originally played at the Vista Recreation Center, which is now the Wave Water Park in Vista, for those of you who don't know that. We have many second and third generation families still playing with us today in our league. So it's pretty amazing to see grandparents out there who played in Vista American. I know my husband played in Vista American, and my kids are playing in Vista American, so it's pretty important to the city of Vista. Little League basically is dedicated to helping children become good and decent citizens. It inspires them with a goal to enrich their lives towards the day when they will then take their place as adults in this world. Little League strives to establish the values of teamwork, sportsmanship, and fair play. And Vista American provides a fun and safe environment that these kids may not otherwise get, particularly considering the demographics that Vista American Little League has. Until 2004, our home was at French Field in Oceanside. This was a home that the City of Vista helped us to secure within Oceanside when we moved to make way for progress and for development of the downtown area, which is now the Wave and the Krikorian. And we were happy to do that. However, if you recall, in 2004, we were displaced from our home at French Field. Again, the City of Vista stepped in to try to help us, but unfortunately there were no fields to be used for our league. So once again, we were moved, and this time to John Landis Park in the city of Oceanside. Since then, we have faced many challenges. Some of you may have read in the paper about all the vandalism, including theft and fire and just general graffiti that we have experienced that have cut into what we can provide to the kids greatly. When we left French Field in 2004, we were over 400 families strong. Now we struggle to maintain enough players each year to keep our charter going. Currently, we're about 210 players in just those short amount of years. So you can see that those costs and those problems and issues impacted our league greatly by 50% in just a few short years. Now we're hit with this economic downturn, and again, we're struggling. But here's the remarkable part about the Vista American story. We're fighting our way back. We're growing slowly. Over the last 3 years, we have grown in little tiny increments every year. 2 or 3 players, 4 or 5 players, 10 or 15 players. And let me tell you, we're very thankful for the city's support recently, and especially as we draw closer to the completion of the sports complex, as we've been promised to be able to play on those fields. I can't tell you the buzz of excitement and anticipation that everyone is talking about. Have you seen it? Did you see the tractors? Did you see the trucks? Did you see what's going on? They're excited. And when we as a board heard about these fees that were proposed to be levied on our league, we were worried. This potentially, between the city's fees of just $14, but per player, and in addition to the proposed maybe Vista Unified also levying those fees, like Ted Cole mentioned, could be as much as 25% more to our families and to our league. Now, currently, we only charge about $120 a player, although we have estimated and budgeted it costs between $350 and $375 per player to keep our kids playing. That includes everything from lights and uniforms and, maintenance of the facility and all that stuff. So we have a lot of fundraising to do, and we do it every year through volunteerism, just like we've been talking about. But adding this as an additional burden could really hurt us. And in a time when we're excited and we're growing, we don't want to see our membership on the decline. So as you discuss the fees that are shared by all the families, please consider this. Vista American has the highest number of scholarship kids in all of North County Little Leagues. We are not heavily supported by private donors, by churches, by civic groups. We are supported by our families and the generosity of our volunteers. The most we charge, like I said, is $120, and just that 25% increase potentially could devastate our future ability to attract potential players, and most importantly, to provide scholarships to kids who cannot afford to play in our league. I can't tell you the number of kids that we see who spend the whole day at the park on Saturday because their parent is absent. And we adopt these kids. We provide them, hand-me-down things, kids that arrive with no socks, no shoes, nothing. And we provide that to them. And these kinds of things, although it might seem small at the time, are thousands and thousands of dollars to a small, struggling league like Vista American. So finally, I just want to close and say that, we may not be a league of strong financial means, but we are rich in volunteerism. And so we're willing to do our part to donate to the City of Vista our time. We're willing to maintain the fields. We're willing to seed the grass and pay for all that. We're willing to do field cleanup. We do that now in the city of Oceanside at John Landis Park. I don't know if any of you have had the opportunity. I know several council members have been there. Since we've been there, I think that any of you have been there and seen it. That place is so much nicer since we took over. And I hate to say it, but when we leave that park, with the cutbacks that the city of Oceanside has made, I fear for what's going to happen to that park. And so we have a history of providing for our own and taking care of each other and taking care of the facility. And we want to do that here in lieu of fees like this. You got it. I'm done. So just consider that we're coming back home to Vista and we're excited. Thanks for your time.
Next was Charlotte Files. I'm sorry if is that correct?
Yes, Files. Hi, I'm Charlotte Files, 150 Walker Way, Vista 92083. I'm representing Vista Girls Softball. I have been involved with the league for over 10 years, and I just want to thank you guys for this opportunity tonight. We've seen a steady decline in our registration over the years, and it's partly due recently to the economic environment that we're all facing. Increased fees by the city would cause us to have to increase our fees to our families. At this time, we provide scholarships to our players that cannot afford to pay these fees, and we've given out over $1,400 in scholarships this year. We provide $500 scholarships to high school players from RBV High School and Vista High School that have played and gone through our program and are continuing on with their education. We announce this to our players, and so they're aware that this is something that they have to look forward to in the future as well. We, over the years, have provided services at our facilities at Buena Vista Fields as far as getting concrete donated for sidewalks, bringing in decomposed granite for the hillsides, grading the sides of the fields where the rain is washed away and made ruts, assisting in a third of the cost for dirt for our playing fields and for laser leveling of these facilities. We do an annual cleanup day, including grounds maintenance and providing cleaning of facilities. We've assisted in painting our building down there. All these things are done through our volunteers, and annually we have over 125 parents and grandparents that come out and help with our league. These fees would obviously impact us in being able to provide this safe environment for our girls to play. And we already feel that we have done a lot in order to offset these costs for the city, and we would continue to do that in just hopes that you would consider this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, Danny Cruz.
Hi, thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I'm Danny Cruz. We're at P.O. Box 4141 in Vista. I'm with North County Bobby Sox. We're the oldest softball league in Vista. We've been around since the 60s. Most of our kids, we're down to 55 kids. Mainly, I mean, it's because of economics. It's also because of the condition that our field is in, which I brought pictures to show. I'm not sure where this money's supposed to go that you're asking for. I would hope that it would be to make our fields better. If it, I don't understand it. Most of the people that we provide softball for barely make it. We scholarship more than half of the girls that play now. $14 we would have to pass that cost on, and we would be able to reach less and less girls. I think it's important for us to continue to offer youth sports in Vista, and the more fees we charge, the less we're going to be able to do that. Kids who are involved in sports don't do drugs. They're not painting the walls. They're responsible citizens. So I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those are the individuals that had submitted speaker slips in order to give us your thoughts regarding this action. So now it's time for the council to discuss the matter. Mr. Campbell is first up.
Mayor, thank you. I certainly feel for what we're having to go through here this evening. I think everyone here on the council has had children go through the school system as well as been involved in various sports here in the community. And we know how much that has helped them grow as individuals, and we relate well to what you're telling us. But, and this may sound cruel and it may sound like an excuse, but it's really not. The state of California has rated all cities to the extent that I think you may have, those of you who were here earlier just said we wrote yesterday a check for $5.4 million of our money, your money, to send to the state of California so they can deal with their inadequate management of our money. And this is not the first money we've sent there. It's not probably fair to Mrs. Gelder to ask her the question, but I will. We, over the last several years, can you sort of share, please, with the audience how much money we've had to give back to the state of California to help them try and solve their budget problem?
In 12 years, it's been over $30 million.
Over $30 million, and we see more of it going forward.
And it's, and I'm sorry, I didn't include the $6 million in redevelopment, so it's about 30, it's over $37 million.
And how much have we reduced our budget by even percentage this year?
20% in the last 2 years.
20% in the last 2 years. And how many people have we not filled positions or let go in the last year?
70, about 70 positions.
About 70 people. So my only point of saying this to the audience is we have really been struggling with huge issues. And the economy, of course, hasn't helped any of us. But I don't see how we can possibly sustain all of the things we do in this community without asking to have more participation on some programs. Because I think our community services group, the staff that we have there, work really hard for very little compared to what I see in other places, and I'm very proud of them. But I really don't know what choices we have short of cutting programs, and I hate to do that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Gronke.
You know, years ago, I was involved with an organization called the Vista Sports Field Foundation. At that time, Mr. Cole was involved, Mr. Wynn was involved, and they were doing a pretty good job of establishing and maintaining fields. I haven't seen much out of them lately. I wouldn't mind pursuing the volunteer aspect, but and I've heard from a lot of speakers tonight that they'd be willing to step up. We're not talking about a one-day, a season opportunity. We're talking about a weekly responsibility. So I'd be willing to postpone this vote and have staff work with the organizations and see if they could come up with a schedule, as long as there's no problem with liability in that regard, if we could maintain those fields, in a proper manner. But if I felt that the citizens couldn't come through, that the agencies couldn't come through on their obligation, then I think we'd have a responsibility. I'm looking at a bottom line of $60,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but as Mr. Campbell just expressed, we're really hurting. We're really hurting. But I've heard over and over again that volunteers from our community can step forward and help us out, and this is your opportunity to do that. And if you're willing to do that, I'm willing to assist you with that.
We've got someone here in the audience that works for the city. I'd like to call on, if I could, Chuck Christ, who could maybe address the question of volunteerism and how it works in maintaining fields. Chuck is our works with us in the recreational and maintenance programs for the city of Vista.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. In regards to our experience with volunteerism in the past, it's been a relationship we've obviously been committed to. It's oftentimes good at the beginning, but there are occasions where the interest wanes, and that's been somewhat of a track record. We're always willing to work with the public, but the overall experience hasn't been that of a commitment long term.
Thank you. Mrs. Ritter, do you have a comment?
I was going to say the same thing that Steve was. I agree that if we could look at volunteers, but it isn't just like during the season, it's like the whole year. I mean, we're, doing those fields all year, so it's a long time commitment for that. But I know how important sports are to kids, and I mean, my kids have always been involved in sports. My grandkids are involved in sports. It is expensive, and the kids that need it the most sometimes can't afford it. So it's such a hard decision. And also, like our costs from the city have gone up. Our costs have gone up. Our tax money, our property taxes are down. Our sales taxes are down. The state is taking stolen. I'll say stolen money from us. So it's a significant amount, and we're looking at how do we go forward here, and what can we cut? So I'm willing to put this off also, like Steve is, and see if we can work with some volunteers and get some maybe some commitments, but it have to be long-term commitments. It isn't like we'll help you for 6 weeks and then we're done. It would have to be. But let's look at what we can do together. I mean, I say we have good volunteers in our community. There's like I know our church, North Coast, we have groups that go out and help, and maybe some of them would help. Maybe we can get together some service groups or something. But I'm willing to look at that and get some volunteers and put off raising this until we do that. But because I think again, we are a community, and it's our quality of life in our community. Our kids are. So I mean, I have a hard time asking them to pay more when I know that they really need the sport. So how
many of these fields are we talking about when we talk about using volunteers? How many actual fields would we be having volunteers come forward to keep and maintain on a weekly basis?
Well, at RBV, there's 2 city fields. At Breeze Hill, there's 2 softball fields and a soccer field. At Bub Williamson, there's 2 softball fields. At the new sports park, there'd be 2 Little League fields, a Pony Colt field, then 2 synthetic turf soccer football fields. At Luz Duran, a soccer field. So what's that, 8 total fields?
13.
13 total. And the school, and then
what about the school district fields?
School district fields as well, yes, that they use at RBV and at Lincoln, and I think they use Madison and others.
Okay. Were you done, Mrs. Ritter? I think it's really admirable to come forward and say, yeah, we would use volunteers to maintain the fields, but we have a tremendous number of fields, and I know that those that are involved in the programs want to have those fields maintained at a level that they can enjoy, their kids can enjoy. And I just don't know how volunteerism can do it, and do it on a sustained basis. I think, as our staff has said, is that over the first part, that it is very enthusiastic. And I know that when we have volunteers come out and do work in the parks, they do a great job for a day, and then they're gone. And they go home and they say, "Boy, we did really a great job," but they're not coming back week after week after week and doing volunteerism to do the work. And on the other hand, I've had kids in Little League and have grandkids now playing Little League, it's just not Little League, it's soccer, and it's every sport that the kids, and I know how valuable they are to the kids. I want to answer one question. You cannot use redevelopment money to pay for ongoing expenses of maintaining fields and of programs of this nature. I know that was brought up earlier. That's just
You're correct. It's
you just
not
can't.
used for
It's not.
maintenance.
It's not, cannot be used for maintaining or paying for ongoing expenses of a recreational program. So that's not, and we can't use CBDG grant money for this as well. Those are funds that have very strict guidelines, and they don't include recreational programs. And so it gets right down to the point that where do you find the money? And I know that we always say, well, the kids are the most important. I agree the kids are the most important. But, when you've heard, the economic shortfalls that we have right now. I mean, we've laid off 70 employees. There aren't many programs left to cut because they've all been cut. And so we're trying to scramble to be able to keep some of the programs going for the kids. Now, one of the things about this whole situation that bothers me, though, is the fact that if we increase the fees, then, of course, the school district will start doing the same thing. And that's bothersome to me, not the fact I know the school district has to do it, but it just doubles up on what we're expecting from them. And so what's the solution? Putting it off is not going to help. If we go off into and try to make a decision at a later date as to whether volunteerism is going to work or not, I just don't think it's going to work. Mr. Campbell?
I have a thought that Mr. Gronke and you might also, you had an idea there, and that's that their volunteers could maybe help and offset cost. Maybe there's a win-win hiding in here going forward, but it would take some time to put together. And I agree with the mayor. We're out of time. We need to move forward, and that would be to let Mr. Fortmuller and his team brainstorm with the city manager options where volunteers could be participatory in various activities, but give them a credit computed on possibly a quarter or semi-annual basis towards the cost of the program, which would reduce the cost of the program. But it would be something that he and the leagues could work on and come up with a plan to present to us. But in the meantime, we need to be assured that the investment we've made in and I know we could improve the fields. Everything we do, we could improve. But we need to make sure we maintain them at least in a safe, operable condition. That is our responsibility, and there's certain liabilities with that. So if Mr. Gronke would agree with that as a concept, and Mrs. Ritter and the mayor, I think we need to move forward on this, but put it back to task to the staff and the teams to see if there can't be some arrangement where there might be a credit issued for work rendered as they can do so, which is, I think, the mayor's point. We have people that are willing to work but can't always do it on a consistent basis. But at least they'd be recognized for the effort they made, and I don't want to see us quell that interest. With that, I'd move.
No, I don't think we're ready for a motion quite yet.
I wouldn't mind discussing that a little bit.
Okay. I think there's another alternative, and actually another alternative might be is that, we've got two levels of leagues here. We have the recreational programs, and then we have the competitive. And I look to the recreational ones as being the ones in which we have a greater responsibility for. These are the ones that kids that are just coming from the neighborhoods to want to participate in these various activities, and it's not something that's as ongoing as the others. I think there's a greater base for the recreational programs than there is for the competitive. I would suggest that maybe that we look to maybe provide for the recreational, charge for the competitive, and get some volunteers to help with the recreational programs.
Okay, can I weigh in on this one?
Sure.
It's not a bad idea, and Mr. Campbell's idea is not a bad idea. So in your vision, Mr. Campbell, you would see that this credit would be given to those clubs that participate, and if you choose not to participate, then those children would pay the full fare.
Yeah, I don't see that those who put out the effort should not reap the reward for it, because they're trying to get more kids in their league and support them.
So we're encouraging them to volunteer, and if they choose not to, then...
Encouraging entrepreneurship within the bounds of liability of their participation and involvement, but I think that certainly Mr. Fortmuller, going forward with fewer people, is going to have more opportunities to do things that possibly volunteers could be used in.
And if we ask legal counsel about the liability, I know when the Sportsfield Foundation was working, were they working under some type of special contract?
Well, we could approach liability under a contract. At a minimum, we would have releases that would be required to be signed that would release the city from liability for injury. I can't tell you to what degree there would be any impacts with respect to any of our agreements, employee agreements. That would be another issue that might have to be considered, maybe a subject of meet and confer.
It appears to me that we've outsourced a lot of our maintenance of so we're really not talking about internal contracts.
To the extent you're outsourced, then that's not an issue.
Okay. And if I'm to understand right, would they be signing a release every time they participate, or would they sign one release on an annual basis?
I think we would look to an annual form.
Okay. And then your suggestion, Mayor, was that the Mr. Campbell's idea would come into play for the recreational teams, but we give the same opportunity to the competitive teams?
I'd say that we basically not charge for the recreational, and then the competitive could do do as you say. I mean, they could do the credit for the volunteers and to help to pay for their use.
Okay. I don't see any reason why the recreational can't be part of the process too. I mean, we're asking them to volunteer. We're asking them to step up. Everybody knows that we're in trouble right now. So if you're willing to step up, I think we're willing to help.
Well, but you can't. The problem is that we can't just go ahead and say, hey, we're going to hope for volunteers. I mean, we have to either, at this point in time, set the fees and charge, and then say, you can get credit. Yeah. Or else we need to say, look, we're not going to charge, and we're going to set the fees for a portion, and then they can get credit for...
if I understand the concept right, we're going to set the fees tonight, and then set up a schedule for credit as volunteers come forward. That was the way I understood it.
I'm sorry, I still think there needs to be distinction between the recreational programs and the competitive teams. And, okay. Say that the competitive teams, there will be a fee charged, and on the recreational teams, there will not be,
You're not going to raise the fees on the recreational teams.
Right. I think we need to look at it that way, and I think we need to maybe dig harder, I guess, in our own, and see what we can find. I mean, it may not work, but at least it'll give it an effort. It bothers me that it's going to be a double whammy on these, not only the city, but then the return for the of the school district as well, because that'll happen as well. And so it's just, And in these economic times, you look at our community, we have a very diverse community, and there's a lot of people that are unemployed, and a lot of people who just cannot make it. And I think this is, like the programs that we foster, in school for, the anti-gang programs and everything else, this is just another peg in the board that will help those kids get through this time in their life.
Do I understand then you would keep the competitive teams at the schedule that's shown on our screen right now?
As far as I'm concerned, yeah.
And the recreation then would be no increase at all?
Right.
But the competitive teams do have an opportunity for the credit?
They do.
Okay. I can go along with that.
Staff, is that fine with staff?
I'm looking to Mr. Fortmiller. We'll have to sit down and figure something out to make that work. Basically, the recommendation is to not charge the recreational teams, the one on the top half of the page, the $14, but to charge competitive teams for their field use, and that if we can work out a volunteer-type program for the competitive teams, they could do work that would go towards crediting for that $23 per person.
We could.
So that, let's have set a time frame for this as well to take a look at to see actually whether it's a sustained effort to get that credit. If it's not working, well, of course, if it doesn't work, then they just pay. Yeah, so it doesn't matter.
Mayor, I'd ask about lights. It's a side note, it's a sub-note, but I'm looking at the data here, and lights would be paid by everybody using lights. Is that correct?
That is a separate charge. They've been charged that now, and they would continue.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I would just like to add, if you want to bifurcate these issues, we have really basically 3 votes here. One is on the facility fees and recreational program fees. That's one issue. The second is the sports field usage, which you've been discussing right now. And the third is whether you want us to go to 4 shows for the Moonlight.
Well, if it's going to be, let's take the last one first. I think that's a no-brainer, because if it's going to be cheaper, and that's what you're telling us, is it's going to be cheaper if we do 4?
Right, but if we want to start with not this coming season, but the following season, we need to increase this year's budget by $161,000.
If we start this season, then what happens? We have to
increase the budget.
We'd have to increase this budget because the first show would be in June.
We can do that.
Okay, we can do that. So have you got your direction then on that?
Yes.
Okay, then the next one was on the sports fields, which we just concluded. And does someone want to make a motion on that?
If staff is clear on the direction, I'd be willing to make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. And let's vote on it. Okay, and that passes unanimously. Okay, and the last one is what?
Last one would be the fees for raising the fees for day camp, Adobe Days, the rental rate for the new community room, and there's one.
I think we have to do that. Unfortunately, we have
parking by $2.
Does anyone want to make a motion on that?
I'll make a motion on that.
Second.
Okay. Please cast your votes. No, I'm sorry. You want to turn it off? How do you do that? Okay. All right. And that's unanimous. Okay, we'll see how it works. Thank you all for coming. Okay, let's go on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Let's say hello to Ted.
Here she comes. Mr. Gronke had another event that he had to be to, so that he's left the meeting, and we'll continue with the four of us. The second item is discussion item number 2, which is the fiscal year 2009, 2010 third quarter financial report. Mr. Gardner.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm Tom Gardner, the Finance Director for the City of Vista. I have with me Dale Nielsen. This evening we're presenting the third quarter report. I'd like to report just briefly that the the general fund operating revenues and expenditures are within the budgetary expectations that we have adjusted for this year through both the second quarter and March discussions that Council has.
When you say that they're within expectations, you don't mean that in a good way.
No, I mean, as we have adjusted our expectations.
As we have adjusted our expectations,
they are
yes.
within those expectations. And we don't have a recommendation at this time to adjust revenues as we had in previous quarterly report time periods. Dale's here to do a very brief presentation. We know you have other things this evening to go do as well. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you, you have the third quarter financial report for the current fiscal year. As Mr. Gard mentioned, in the past two quarterly reports, we had to adjust revenues downward by a little more than $1.7 million due to the deteriorating economic conditions. After analyzing the revenues through the third quarter, it has been determined that no further revenue reductions are needed. In regards to the economic conditions that the city lives within, if you will, Exhibit 1 provides discussion of the various economic highlights and conditions facing the city. Exhibit 1 can be found starting on page 4 of this staff report. For the 9 months ended March 31st, total general fund revenues and other financing sources were $46 million, or about 65.7% of the total budgeted estimate. Detailed information on revenue items can be found on Exhibit 3, starting on page 11 of the staff report. General fund expenditures as of March 31st were about $42.7 million, or 61.1% of budgeted appropriations, and departmental details for that can be found on Exhibit 5, starting on page 16 of the staff report. I just wanted to note one exhibit, Exhibit 6, which is the exhibit that shows a reconciliation from beginning budget numbers to where we are now. We've modified that schedule a little bit so that it now breaks out the current year budget activity versus that part of the budget that is a result of carrying over items from the prior year. At this time, there are 6 operating and 3 CIP budget adjustments recommended. Detailed discussion on the operating budget adjustments can be found on Exhibit 2, starting on page 8. Mr. Gard and I would be happy to answer any questions the council might have.
Are there any questions that council has, or any comments you wish to make?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think this one doesn't have much to discuss, yeah. Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to receive and file the third quarter financial report and adopt the City Council Resolution 2010 next in order, amending the operating program and capital improvement budgets for fiscal year 2009-2010. Please cast your votes. Whoa, what's that? I'm sorry.
That was a financial report, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said the capital improvement budget, and that was next.
There's 3 items.
There's some items involved in that.
In the third quarter report.
Within that report.
Anyhow, it's approved 4-0. All right. Let's go on with discussion item number 3, the capital improvement program budget for fiscal year 2010, 2011 through 2014 and 15. Mr. Pierce.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Larry Pierce, Director of Engineering. I have with me Sudhi Soja, the Assistant Director of Engineering, and she will be making the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. We are presenting the 2010-11 Capital Improvement Program for over $60 million for your consideration. The largest expenditure commitment is over $40 million for the Paseo Santa Fe area. The next largest commitment is in the amount of $15.7 million for several sewer projects that were identified as part of the sewer master plan. About $3 million is proposed on expenditures for street, signal, drainage, and parks projects. As part of this CIP, 8 projects are closed, 23 new projects are proposed, and 35 projects have funding revisions. This results in over $60 million in new appropriations and about $4.9 million in de-appropriations. In the current CIP cycle, staff has been able to complete design or construction of several projects, such as Fire Station Number 1 and substantial completion of Civic Center.
Yeah, we're going back. The slides are going a little faster. Go back one more.
There you
There we
go.
go.
Fire Station Number 1 and the substantial completion of Civic Center is listed on this slide, and this other slide talks about the other projects that have been completed. Several design and construction projects have been completed that will be advertised in the near future. In addition, 6 projects with almost $10 million worth of construction are underway and will be completed in the next few months. The street rehabilitation and maintenance project includes overlay of several arterials such as Melrose, Bobier Drive, North Drive, and North Santa Fe Avenue. There are a total of 77 projects in this year's CIP, with majority of them being for street and sewer improvements. The Paseo Santa Fe project, with over $40 million in appropriation, will provide infrastructure improvements and a detention basin to address the floodplain issues in the area. This project fosters the development of a vibrant, mixed-use, transient-oriented, and pedestrian-friendly district in the heart of Vista. We are proposing 8 new projects for the Vista Sanitation District. The largest project is the Monte Vista South Santa Fe Avenue realignment and upsize project. The largest project in the Buena Sanitation District is the upsizing of the sewer line between the Green Oak Road and the Buena Creek pump station for about $5.4 million that is fully funded from Buena replacement and expansion accounts. New street projects include sidewalk and intersection improvements adjacent to Crestview and Monte Vista Elementary Schools. The proposed signal projects were approved as part of the traffic signal priority list in February 2010. The Bobolink Storm Drain project extends the existing facility from north to Dorsey Way. The Wave Solar project will install 5,000 square feet of solar collectors that will generate the heat necessary for the competition pool. This concludes our presentation, and we are available for any questions you may have.
Mr. Campbell?
Could you tell us a little bit about the Wave Solar Project, what that consists of, and where does that get mounted?
It gets mounted along the channel that is next to the wave, and in 4 years, it will pay for itself. We will start seeing savings on it.
So this is preheating of water? Is that what it does?
It is heating
It's
of the
electric.
water, yes.
So it's hydraulic?
It's, yeah, circulating system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Lopez?
Along with that, now, what you're saying is that they're going to put something in that channel area?
If you remember the bank, there's a bank that's above the concrete channel. It'll be on that bank, that south-facing bank.
That's right behind the wave, correct?
It's on the north side of the channel, so it's kind of right next to where CPK is, and all the way up to Burger
And we
King.
will be investing how much in that?
It's about...
$145,000.
How much?
$145,000.
$145,000. Now, eventually, when we develop the other properties in that area, will this, when we put new restaurants and all that, as it is, we have a parking problem there. Will this system be in the way of possibly down the road, we'll be able to cover that channel and be able to use that as parking? What are you going to do? We're spending money?
Yeah, we're spending money to save money right now, and, you know, if it comes down to that, and we actually end up covering that channel, like we did down around Hacienda, or not Hacienda, but Mercantile, and covering the box cover, yeah, that, it'll have to be, something will have to be done with the solar panels, so opportunities may be to remove the solar panels and move them up onto a trellis structure that would be over the parking in that area. That would be a possibility. Or we don't need them anymore, or we find someplace else to use them, or they come up with more efficient panels that require less space to heat the water when we have to do that, so.
So then, after 3 or 4 years, we'll have a track record of, actually, will you know how much you're going to be saving?
Yes.
And at that point, you can decide on which direction to go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? No. Okay, do you have a motion?
Second.
Okay. And I didn't have anyone wishing to speak from the public, so please cast your votes.
Cost for space to cover the channel.
Okay, and that passes unanimously. Next, we'll go to the public hearings. The first is the solid waste franchise fee increase.
What do you think about this next one?
Very good. Mr. Howe?
Good evening, Mayor Vance and council members. I'm Jim Howell, Interim Director of Public Services, and Lynn Dedman is here with me tonight to make a presentation on franchise fees. And representative of EDCO Disposal are also in the audience should you have any questions.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Under the current franchise agreement between the city and EDCO Disposal, EDCO currently pays the city of Vista a 5% franchise fee on revenues the company receives from the collection of refuse in the city. The franchise fee of 5% has remained unchanged since the agreement was approved in 1990. Revenue that the city collects from franchise fees are placed in the general fund and used to pay for city services such as law enforcement, recreation programs, and street maintenance, just to name a few. When compared to other cities in San Diego County, Vista's solid waste franchise fee is currently the second lowest in the region. Excluding Vista, the average franchise fee of the 14 cities shown is 10.4%. This city comparison does not include the city of Oceanside and city of Coronado because they use a different fee structure to receive revenue from waste collection. Staff is proposing a 3% increase to the current 5% franchise fee. This proposed 8% franchise fee would place the city of Vista in the middle tier when compared to other cities in San Diego County. Due to the current state of the economy, staff is proposing that the increase occur over a 2-year time frame with a 1.5% increase effective July 1st, 2010 to a 6.5% franchise fee. Effective July 1st, 2011, the franchise fee would increase another 1.5% to a fee of 8%. The impact of the increase to residential and commercial customers is shown for two commonly provided services, the two 95-gallon carts for residential service and the 3-yard bin for commercial service. The monthly rate for the two 95-gallon carts would increase 30 cents in year 1 and 31 cents in year 2. The monthly rate for a 3-yard bin serviced one time a week would increase by $1.62 in year 1 and $1.66 in year 2. A comparison of residential rates for the common 95-gallon cart service after the 1.5% franchise fee increase in year 1 would place Vista in the lower middle tier when compared to other cities in San Diego County. When compared to other cities' rates in San Diego County in 2010, the proposed franchise fee increase to 8% in year 2 would place Vista at number 7 out of the 15 cities. This concludes staff's presentation. Mr. Howell and I are available for any questions you may have.
Okay. This is a public hearing. I don't have any requests to speak from the audience. If there's anyone in the audience that does wish to speak on this matter, now is the time. The public hearing is open. Okay, seeing none. Council? Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to thank EDCO for being an exceptional partner with the city. Mrs. Geldert reminded me recently of the good work they've done. I know Vista Rocks, they've picked up, I don't know how many countless tons of trash from our neighborhoods and done other good deeds, but I think with regard to some of the civics construction projects, I don't know how you'd put a value on it. We've had rubble and trash and junk, and it's been significant. And I don't know if they want to speak to that, but we've gotten tremendous value from EDCO's service to the community, and I thank them for that.
I think Mr. Ritchie could put a value on it, but we certainly appreciate all that they've done on all of our projects here to, that Ms. Putnam's been a great negotiator with them to, I appreciate all that they've done because they have gone out of their way to help us with all of our projects and specifically our community projects.
I think I've often mentioned that out of all the cities that I've worked for, I think that this is by far and away the best, not only relationship that we've had, but also the best service that we've ever had in any city. And so we do appreciate that. Are there any other comments? Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. EDCO has donated so much to this community and is part of this community. And like Bob said, Mr. Campbell said, when we did our capital projects, they were there for us. And whenever we have any type of rock or any of those type of things in our community, they're there for us. And all I can say is they're the best. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie, and thank your boss. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, you have a comment.
I forgot one question I should have asked. San Diego Gas and Electric, and I imagine other utilities have some sort of opportunity for people who just simply can't cover their costs to get a still service, but at a reduced rate. Do we have any of that built into this with EDCO?
Councilman Campbell, yes, indeed, we do have, I can't cite the details, but we do have a rate for lower income, single-family residents.
But it's not covered by other ratepayers by law. It can't be covered by, so there is a reduced rate that comes from the general fund. And the general fund, we subsidize that every year based on applications, and they have to state that they don't have their trash picked up for other reasons, that they take their trash elsewhere, or based on their income. So we have a low-income or otherwise exception program for ratepayers, but that is subsidized out of the general fund, not out of other ratepayers' trash rates.
Thank you for clarifying that. Mayor, I'd move to close the public hearing and adopt resolution next in order.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion second. Any further questions or comments? Please cast your votes. Okay, and that passes unanimously.
Last but not
I'm not done with it.
He's not done with
Okay, let's go on to the next item on the agenda. That's the second public hearing, which is building plan check, inspection, and traffic impact fees. Mr. Conley.
Thank you, Mayor. John Conley, Community Development Director. I have Rick Snyder, who's our building official and assistant director, with me as well. And the consultant who prepared the fee study for us is in the audience tonight. We're going to hear a short report about our plan to adjust our building and traffic impact fees. It involves two different actions. One is to adjust the building fees in accordance with the fee study that was prepared by our outside consultant. And the second action is to reduce our traffic impact fees by 25%. So I'll cover the building fees first. The building fees are essentially operational fees that pay for our staff time that we need to review building plans and perform inspections for various building permits. These fees supplement the general fund and pay for our staff time. The last time they were updated was actually 1999. That's a typo, but it was more than 10 years ago. As a result of the current economy and the fact that the fees hadn't been adjusted in a long time, we embarked on a fee study late last year, which was prepared by a consulting firm by the name of MGT of America, which analyzed data of staff time spent doing plan check and inspection on various types of building projects to determine what our real costs were for those types of permits. In doing so, the consultant also evaluated our current fee structure to see what fees were charged for those various types of projects to determine what kind of cost recovery we receive from the various permits that we charge for. And the study ended with recommendations to adjust our fees to better reflect how we use our staff resources. In general, the recommendations were to increase fees for smaller permits like water heaters and small residential additions, patio covers, that kind of a thing, because we undercharge and in some cases severely undercharge for those services right now because of the time it requires us to inspect those projects. And to decrease some of the larger scale permits, such as major commercial centers and industrial buildings where our fees really subsidize some of the smaller permits the way our current structure is set up. This is included as Exhibit 4 to the staff report and basically provides a comparison to some of the other jurisdictions out there and what they're charging for fees for a few different types of permits. There's also a much more detailed breakdown of different types of permits in the fee study, and I can refer to that if you have any questions. But just to note, you'll see that the cities of Encinitas and Poway, who've also gone through recent fee study updates, have comparable fees to the majority of what we're charging. The cities that have fairly low fees or lower fees that are shown on this list are most likely those that haven't adjusted their fees in a long time or have chosen to subsidize smaller permits such as water heaters or electrical service or air conditioning units. Vista's proposed fees are shown in the red box as what's recommended by the consultant, and the current fees for those same types of permits are included below. And then at the bottom, we included a list of the number of permits that we've issued in the last 3 years for those types of permits so that you have an understanding of how many of those we process. And in general, just to recap what I mentioned before, it shows that we need to increase our fees for smaller permits. The larger scale permit, which in here would be the 25,000 square foot office retail building that's in the middle of the table, would actually go down by about $1,000. The types of permits that would be reduced per the recommendations of the consultant are generally projects that are valued over $100,000, and those include all of the major industrial and commercial projects, as well as tract housing, because in tract housing you usually have 2 or 3 different types of models, and the same plan applies for multiple houses within the development. So we would reduce our fees for those fairly substantially for tracts. With regard to traffic impact fees, these are development impact fees that the city charges for improvements to the transportation system. These are levied on all new development projects per our development code, and they can only be used for transportation improvements, so they do not supplement our general fund, cannot be used to pay for staff time or other city operations. They can only be used for capital improvement projects that relate to the transportation system in our general plan. The staff is recommending a reduction of 25% on these fees until our general plan update is complete, and the reason for that is we are removing a lot of the smaller designated roads off of the circulation element and focusing primarily on the major arterials and collector streets. Right now there's a lot of smaller designation roads that just provide circulation in the city but aren't the major arterials, and improvements to those roads do drive up the cost of the traffic impact fee study fairly significantly. So in recognition of that, we acknowledge that we will most likely be reducing the fees at the time the general plan is done with a new fee study. And so in the interim period, we feel it's appropriate to reduce it 25% in recognition of that. And we do plan to revisit it early in 2011 after the general plan is updated with a new fee study and come back to the council. For this item, we went through a fairly extensive public review. We included the standard notices in the paper. We met with representatives of the Building Industry Association on 2 different occasions and had a fairly lengthy conversation, a face-to-face meeting the last time to discuss how we determined our building fees and what the recommendations were for other fee deferrals. We also presented last week to the Government Affairs Committee at the Chamber of Commerce and answered questions and held a public hearing this evening. So with that, the staff recommendation is to adopt the resolutions modifying the building and traffic impact fees, and our staff is available for questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions of clarification before I call on those? Okay. This is a public hearing. The public hearing is open. We have 2 individuals that have requested to speak. First is Steve Matchey.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. My name is Steve Machi with the San Diego County Building Industry Association. And as Mr. Conley indicated, we did meet with staff a couple times and the consultants as well to go over the fee structure. What we've been finding in many jurisdictions that there's a movement to increase fees where they're actually not using a time study analysis, and we took great heart in the fact that the City of Vista is using a time study analysis to equitably come up with your fee structure. In looking it over, we found that the old fee structure really had the developers that I would be representing, our members, heavily subsidizing your other permits. So by the new fee structure and the Nexus study that you did, it looks as though it's a great savings to our builders, and we were happy to come here. And, you know, we don't like to see fees go up. There's a modest fee increase going here. But this is really a lot, I think, smaller fee increase well, it's actually a savings to our builders we're looking forward. So with that, I'd like to just say thank you for doing that, and we still would like to work with the city and deferring fees where we can. It's very difficult out there. Our unemployment rate in our industry is down about 32%. So we'd like to put people back to work as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Rick Giddings.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff. My name is Rick Giddings, 807 East Mission Road, San Marcos. I've provided a copy of my comments to the council. This letter and my comments are to support the proposed resolution to reduce the traffic impact fees by 25%. However, we would ask for consideration for those property owners who have previously paid the higher traffic impact fee during the time period between the original approval and today's date. I represent the owner of Assessor Parcel 219-010-36, who previously protested the increase in traffic impact fees, requested the City Council consider a delay or implementation of that fee over 3 years. It would seem appropriate, reasonable, and fair to reimburse those property owners who paid the higher fees. As we read the resolution, we do not see any provision for reimbursement or a rebate of those higher fees, and we would request such reimbursement for any property owner that paid the higher fees. If you have any questions or require additional information, I'd be glad to respond to any questions.
Great, thank you. Could you tell us how many properties paid the higher fees?
My estimate is there's probably maybe 10 to 12 projects that have paid the higher fees over the last couple of years. In terms of major projects, we have a lot of smaller building permit projects that would have a very nominal fee, but in terms of major fees, that's probably a fair estimate.
Thank you. Questions from the council? Mr. Campbell.
I'm smiling at Mr. Giddings because it just with the suggestion of Mr. Conley here to help out going forward here for a period of time, it's obviously no good deed goes unpunished. And I understand Mr. Giddings' point very well, but I don't think we have the data in front of us to know what that impact would be, and I think Mrs. Geldert's already spent the money.
That's what I was thinking.
It's gone. So in terms of the building permit fees, can we truncate and talk about that for a minute? I don't know how we ever issued any piece of paper from this city or any city for $15. But I'd like to ask Mr. Snyder, if I might, about water heaters. There's tankless water heaters today, which I've been investigating. And I learned there's two things about them. They're not simple. They are complex. They need to be very well installed, or they fail to serve their purpose. And they also tend, in this wonderful water we have, to become dysfunctional on their own in short order. But it seems that a standard little old tank heater has a certain lifespan and is not terribly complex. Would there be any reason to have a differential in fee charge for tankless versus standard to consider?
I don't really believe so. The amount of time to inspect the units are relatively the same. By the time we get there, most everything's installed. It's a matter of looking at gauges and verifying the installation.
Okay. And then let me ask you about under electrical permits, electrical outlets. What does that mean? New electrical outlets or replacement of electrical?
It could be either. If you only replace the actual receptacle itself, it doesn't require a permit. So it's all about extending lines, actually moving the box and the conduits and what have you. It would fall into that.
Okay. So that's harder to do than a water heater. Okay. I believe you that. What does a meter release mean?
Basically, that's when you replace your electric meter. We're responsible for going out and inspecting the electrical gear and then releasing it to SDG&E for them to hook up the service.
Okay. And did we get involved in that at all when they went out and their contractors changed out all our meters in the middle of the night, or did they just do that?
Yeah, we were not involved in that.
Not involved in it. So we have to trust they did a good job. Thank you.
Any other comments from a member of the council? Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the 25% is okay, but when this came in front of us a few years back, I was the only one on that council who voted against this. And I'm a believer that we have small increases whenever we do these things. And the problem we've had here in Vista is that we lagged a long time in having increases here. And if we would have did them slowly as the years went, maybe we wouldn't have had the problems we're having today. But out of this, all these categories that you have here, you only have one that actually came down. You have like Mr. Campbell said, the water heater. Years ago, I got a sheet from a contractor stating how much the water heaters were charged from every city, and at that time I told Ms. Gildert that we need to go up $5-10 on that, but I can't remember how many years that we had a water heater at $15. It must have been 20 years or something like that. And so, correct me, John, if I'm wrong, but it's been a long time. And again, we are dropping the impact fees, but we're raising over here on these other categories. So we're taking from the developer, and we're raising the smaller projects and affecting them too. But I can live with that, considering you have come down 25% on the impact fees. I would have loved to have it down a little bit more, but it is what it is, and I don't know if this council would go for less. But I would agree with Mr. Campbell. I hope he agrees. I think that's what he was saying, that the water heater went from $15 to $103. To me, that's a little much, and I think that that if we do that, then we will have people doing water heaters illegally, and we would have more problems down the road, possibly fires. So if this council would agree to have that down a little, maybe half of that, I could live with that. But to go from 15 to 100 and, I believe it was 103 is a lot of money. And the ones with the ACs was from $22 to $210. AC is are units that really need a lot of inspection and a lot of work. So I can agree with that. It's a little high, but I'll have to agree with it. So if this council would work with me on the water heaters, one, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Gelder.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that one of the reasons that did jump so high is because we wanted the valid number for actual time. And so since we were trying to making sure that we had a study that validated the time spent and the corresponding dollars to that time spent, that's why that number is there. And certainly not trying to say that you have to stick to that number, you don't, but we're trying to provide the rationale behind it. Plus also, if you look and see at the number of water heaters that people do get permits for per year, at the $15 fee, we'd always kept it low because we wanted to encourage people to have the inspection and to make sure that they did come out. I don't know the actual number, but I can pretty well guess that probably 10 times that number of water heaters go in Vista a year, and that they don't get the fee. So charging even more is certainly going to be a disincentive for people to get permits and have inspections. But that's the rationale. I just wanted to explain the rationale behind the fee, and that you can set it at what you think is best, but also we do still want to encourage people to get the inspections. And but we, even at a very low fee and a $5 or $10 fee, I don't think we're going to get that many more people in for inspections.
Okay, Mr. Campbell?
Well, I just think of Mr. Lopez's comments, and possibly Mrs. Gelder, if we could consider stepping this, maybe it's something in the order of $60 now, and then going up another increment, going up to the 103 in the following year, we might be able, through our friends at Lowe's and other places, to encourage them to get people to replace their water heaters legitimately before a certain deadline, and they might do so, knowing that it's in their best interest to save that money. So I would, if Mr. Lopez would agree, suggest we start at 60.
I don't mind 60, and maybe go up another 10 or 15 in the following year, but to go that high. I understand that it costs us to send an employee out there quite a bit, but what bothers me, and it's always bothered me, is that to have increases like that, and then we look back, oh, we shouldn't have not done that, because then it creates more problems with possibly fires, with problems with people not applying for that permit. So if you have it too high on a water heater, it can be a problem down the road.
Okay, do you want to bifurcate this and talk about these fees and then talk about the development fees, or do you want to take and do it on one motion? Okay, would someone like to make a motion? Are you through discussing the developer fees? I know there's been a request for reimbursement. I, for one, don't favor that. Of course, that's 4 that shook their heads no. Okay. Okay, would someone like to make a motion then?
I'll make a motion.
I'm not aware of many studies that decrease developer fees, and I'm also not aware of any that offer reimbursements, but there's always a first, I guess.
I'll make the motion, but not the reimbursement.
Okay. And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Unless there's further discussion.
The motion
is to adopt the fees as presented, except for the water heater, and we're going to do that at $60 this year, and whatever it takes to get to the next group.
Bring it back next year?
Bring it back.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I just feel bad about the ones that have paid the higher fees.
Well, I don't think anyone's paid the higher fees.
So point of clarification, Mayor,
Which fees are you talking about?
Over the last 2 years.
fees.
We're trying to encourage new development to come in, so that's why we lowered it
Well,
too.
you encourage them, but not quadrupling it.
Point of clarification, Mayor,
You're suggesting that we incrementally should have increased it incrementally, maybe we ought to decrease it incrementally.
On which one? The,
Developer fees,
like how much?
only 10%. I'm only kidding. Anyone want to?
John wants to speak.
John?
Point of clarification on
completely out of order.
on the water heater issue, you want to start at 60, and then I'm not sure what you wanted to do after that. You wanted to bring it back to the council next year to consider for an increase, or, okay, will do.
All right. Please cast your votes. We can talk about thousands and millions of dollars, and we get hung up on water heaters. Yeah. Okay, thank you. That concludes that portion of the agenda, public hearings. You did close the public hearing, did you not, Mr.?
Yes,
I did. Okay. Okay, next we have oral communications. And first of all, we'll hear from Rod Bradley.
Mr. Mayor, Council, staff, my name is Rod Bradley with BHA. We're a land planning civil engineering firm located at 5115 Avenida Encinas in Carlsbad. And I'm here this evening representing the property owners that I handed in the speaker slips that are highlighted on the map in the gold color in the Sunset Island area that's located west of Melrose, south of the City of Vista city limit line, and north of Oceanside city limit line. We're basically here this evening because of the general plan update. The current general plan calls the area to be 1 acre. The proposed general plan calls it to be 1 acre. And I know that all of you have been in Vista for some time, and you know that the Sunset Island area is kind of stagnant. It doesn't change. It doesn't change at all. And we're here asking the council if they would allow us to work with staff to look at a land use scenario that we think works for the City of Vista, or ultimately for the City of Vista, and works for the landowners out there, that would allow this thing to move on. You have a general plan that's going to last for another 20 years or another 30 years, and I just can't imagine that the Sunset Island area would stay the same during that period of time. If you allow us to do this, I think there's some real opportunities out there for a high-quality development with trails and open space and all the things that everybody likes, and not be this intense, overdone development. But 1 acre just does not work out there. We see it as an infill project and not on the periphery. And so in conversations with Mr. Conley, we were in hopes that we could get the council to direct staff to work with us over the next month and a half and actually come back with an agenda item with a proposed land use that would work for all of us and hopefully secure your approval.
Okay, thank you. Next would be Gary Farnsworth. And again, I think he wants to speak about Sunset Island.
Yes, thanks. We're not in the city limits, so we don't get a vote for any council people here, and I wish we could change that also, but what I see, and I'm a little in the dark on all of what the county's trying to do and what the city's trying to do, so I just wanted to say that I think that should be the landowner's choice of being able to do what they want, if they have multiple acres, to be able to sell it off and build a second house or whatever, granny flat. I would like to put in a granny flat, and I believe that this would eliminate that choice that I would have to build a small dwelling there if I wanted to have a granny flat down the road. So I would like to make sure that we're not limited with what we can do with our property, especially for the next 20 years. Even, I don't know who's pulling the strings, if it's the county or the city, but I think that it's got to start with you guys, because I feel Vista is my home. You know, I'm proud to be part of the Vista. I shop there, and I do, you know, frequent the stores, the Home Depots, and I want to go back to a couple things that you guys had tonight, which is the, you know, the sales tax and raising the kids' fees and stuff, and I see thousands of things that could be fixed and repaired and done to save money, and you guys are raising little kids' fees for the land use parks, and I just don't agree with that, and I think that you guys ought to find another way to save those. You know, if you guys kept the fees low, Carlsbad and Oceanside people would rush to join in Vista, and you guys would see maybe a snowball effect of people coming to Vista to play on the leagues. So raising the fees is not going to, you know, it's not a cure-all. So I would wish that you guys would, you know, when that comes back up, don't raise the fees for the softball. Let's play. And on the land use thing, let's let the owners make the decisions and not the county and the Vista Council. So thanks for your time. Hope to hear from you.
Thank you very much. And the last speaker that submitted also on the Sunset Island is Boyd West. And we appreciate you sticking through this whole meeting, all of you. I know that it's a long time, but we appreciate it.
Nice to get down here and see them. Okay, well, I'm going to talk fast then. If you still have Mr. Bradley's map, if you could take a look at it quickly and see the area that's in yellow. If you put your hand over the map like this and take a look at it and see what you see now, you see just a normal part of town. We're that underneath that hand. That's where we are. Just to give you an idea. We're in the middle of the city. Anyway, good evening. My name is Boyd West. I reside at 1706 Sunset Drive in Vista. My property is actually located in the county portion, as you know, the Sunset Island. However, we're all in the city of Vista's sphere of influence. Where we live, we have water, sewer, natural gas, electricity, telephone, cable TV, and internet at the street. Yet we're completely surrounded by residential housing in Oceanside and Vista. We are literally the hole in the donut. Trying to keep it quick, within a mile of us, there's 3 major shopping centers, 4 schools, a county court complex, professional and medical offices.
Mr. West, slow down a little bit.
Well,
We'll give you an extra couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you. I really didn't want to speak that quickly because you missed the point, and I can't.
You've waited long enough. We can wait a little longer.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. It's like, anyway. Okay, anyway, so within a mile of us, we have the 3 major shopping centers, 4 schools, the county court complex, professional and medical offices, 8 churches, and the 78 freeway. And within another mile, there are 3 more schools, 2 fire stations, everything from Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, the movie theater, Tri-City Medical Center, Miracosta College. Like I said, in other words, we're right in the middle of town. I also have a map here showing the Oceanside Vista. Sorry, I don't have one for everybody to see. Oceanside Vista number 2 drainage area. But if you look at this large black line around here, everything within that line, that area, drains to Oceanside. This is Vista on the north, and the city of Oceanside city limit here. So if you're looking at it, it looks like this. We're the piece of pie in the middle. This is pretty much the boundary lines. Okay, there's an agreement that's been in place since 1984. It's called the Sewer Transfer Agreement between the cities of Oceanside and Vista. And Oceanside has agreed to accept 300,000 gallons of sewage per day. And this doesn't impact Vista. This isn't something that you could use from downtown area. This is going to Oceanside, and there's no way that the downtown area could be somehow pumping it over there and using it. It's just the way sewage flows downhill. That's the way it is. There are some parcels with failing septic systems which do not have access to sewers. Oh, excuse me. Some of us have access to the public sewer, which is controlled by the city of Vista, but is processed by the city of Oceanside, but many do not, some of which are back here. In fact, if the folks that are here from Sunset Island could stand up, show you the few that stuck it out. There are people up to 89 and 90 years old that couldn't be here. They just couldn't sit through the whole thing, including, we have 70-year-old retired school teachers who are living on property they're failing septic systems. It's going to impact them. Anyway, for these homeowners, system failure would result in condemnation of their septic system, and by law, it would be illegal for them to occupy their homes. For any of these people, it would be devastating, and some of them it would result in the loss of their property. Currently, it's cost prohibitive for them to extend the sewer line up the street to their lots. If the lots were allowed to be increased, or excuse me, if the density were allowed to be increased, as it had been agreed upon by the county and the Sunset Island property owners for nearly 7 years now, we would regain the equity we are losing by the City of Vista's decision to downzone this. That equity could then be used to obtain financing so that the sewer lines could be extended. The cost could be distributed over several residential lots rather than being borne by any single project. And I'd like to point out, after seeing the engineering department's presentation, they're spending $15.7 million on sewer improvements. But these sewer extensions are paid for entirely by property owners, not the city. So it's no cost to you in this way. Those who are most in need of the public sewer connection cannot afford it, nor do they wish to be put off their land because of the lack of it. By law, if their septic system fails and there's no public sewer to which they can be connected, they may not occupy their home. They simply could not afford to rent an apartment and at the same time pay a mortgage, property tax, and insurance on usable land what could not be sold. Their property values would be greatly reduced and their homes could be lost to foreclosure because they'd be virtually worthless. As you're aware, the County Department of Planning and Land Use has been working on their General Plan 2020 update, the GP 2020, for over a decade. For almost 12 years now, we, the property owners, have gone through planning workshops, meeting, given public testimony before the legal governing authority having jurisdiction over us, the county. We've only recently found out we're in your sphere of influence. Nearly 7 years ago, and in good faith, an agreement for increased density, consistent and compatible with the area, was made between property owners and the County of San Diego Department of Planning and Land Use. It was made after careful examination of all the facts by the parties involved. Like I said before, I was going to show you this, but you can't see it from there probably. On Rob's map, as you see here, the yellow map, the yellow sections, and this is only up to date as of yesterday. There are a couple on here he hasn't marked yet, and the ones in white that are in the county, the only reason they're white is because we haven't received a response back from all of them yet. So this will be getting updated constantly. The few people that were not for this originally, I've talked with them since. I mean, originally like 10 years ago. You know, they're 10 years older and 10 years wiser. They see that we're going to have this affect us for the next 20 or 30 years. Every one of them, unanimously, so far that I've spoken with, have agreed to the higher density that we had originally agreed to with the county. I received a letter from the county on April 15th notifying me that on April 16th, the County Planning Commission would be making the final recommendation on the land use map. In that letter, the county changed our density to 1 dwelling unit per acre because of input from the City of Vista, indicating that there was not sewer capacity for the increased density. But as I have said, and I have the document here, the Vista transfer agreement has been there since 1984, and they will take to 300,000 gallons per day, which is more than that area. I mean, if you really packed houses in here, if you went psycho, far beyond what anybody has ever requested, you couldn't use all of that sewer capacity. Anyway, we didn't have time to respond to this because it was an 11th hour thing, 1 day to get down there. I just had oral surgery, and I'm the big mouth in the family here, so I couldn't get down there to even speak. Mr. Connolly, the Vista Community Development Director, told us at a meeting on Thursday, April 29th, that he did not request the downzoning. It was just assumed that because they had no plans to increase it, that they didn't want to change it. Therefore, there must be a misunderstanding between the city's planning department and the county's planning department. And as Council Member Gronke mentioned earlier, 53% of the homeowners are in distress. New development anytime soon is not likely to happen. And we all know what the economy is like. And just because an area has higher density doesn't mean it's automatically going to be packed in with people building houses tomorrow. There's no land rush. You had, what, nine new residences built last year and 11 so far this year, as opposed to 288 in 2002. I mean, everything's just gone downhill. Maybe in 15 years, we'll see a lot of development there, maybe 20, but I don't see it anytime soon. And a lot of these lots already have new houses on them that have been built in the last 10 years. They're not going to split their land and, you know, tear down their new house so they can build a second house. It's just, it doesn't make any sense economically. We respect that you We respectfully ask that you put this topic on your agenda so that the City Planning Department can address this issue. We also ask that you respect the hundreds of hours that have been invested by property owners in GP 2020 workshops and meetings, and honor the original agreement from July 2003, and notify the county of your decision to do so before the next meeting of the Board of Supervisors, because they're going to take a vote in the fall, and they need time to have your input. Thank you.
Very good. John, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I've met with Mr. Bradley and Mr. Boyd and their representatives on a number of occasions in the last few weeks. Just to give you some history on what happened with the county, I did go down there in January to meet with the county at my request to talk to them about Vista's general plan update and try to get some information about what was happening with their general plan update to make sure that we could be consistent. And at that meeting, they shared with me a number of the land use changes they were proposing within our sphere around our boundaries that were inconsistent with what we were planning in our general plan update. And in those discussions, I simply pointed out that there was some inconsistency. If they, as the land use authority, wanted to make those changes, there was absolutely nothing we could do about it, but they should consider sewer service in those changes, because most likely properties that were at a higher density than 1 unit per acre would have to get sewer service and would therefore have to annex into the city to get that service. So in recognition of that, I believe they changed their density back to 1 acre because that was what our plan was.
What, is this in the Buena Sanitation District?
No, it's in Vista Sanitation.
How do they get sewer service from the Vista Sanitation District?
The existing properties that have sewer service in that area are served through agreements, sewer agreements that were issued prior to, or possibly after, but my understanding is majority were prior to the law in 1993 that changed.
Our current law doesn't permit that.
Our current law doesn't permit it. It's all regulated by LAFCO through service agreements that they approve, and as of 93, it requires LAFCO approval.
If there were to be additional hookups in that area, does
They
our
would have to
current-
annex.
They'd have to annex.
You have to do one of two things. You either have to annex or you have to show that you have a failing septic system, and LAFCO can approve it that way with a failing septic system.
Okay, and we're not in favor of annexation as a city policy. Is that?
I'm sorry.
There's not a policy that says we're not in favor of annexation. Annexations are basically, they have to determine what their fiscal impact is to the city before we determine whether it's appropriate to annex them, and we have to do it in a logical fashion. Those are the two primary policies.
Mr. Boyd, are you advocating in order to get sewer service that you're willing to annex?
No, what I would like to find out, well, eventually the area will have to be annexed because we are in your sphere of influence. We can't annex to Oceanside. We're just lost sitting out here in limbo. I came to some of the planning meetings for the City of Vista for GP 2030, but I quickly found out that I'm not a resident of Vista, so I really don't have a voice. Where the renters in Vista who don't own property do have a voice, and they can move off, and their voice has been heard. Yet I've been here for decades. I mean, my children went from kindergarten through graduating in high school in Vista schools, but I'm not part of Vista, so I don't count. I've never understood how this works, how we can be in the sphere of influence and not get counted in any way, not get notified in any way. I mean, the county notified us every time there was a meeting, though our property values could be affected. And yet, the City of Vista never, even though they knew GP 2020 is going on for over a decade, have never notified us of anything. I only found out about this indirectly from someone in San
What was there that we would have
Diego.
notified you of?
That there's going to be meetings in the sphere of influence by the City of Vista that could affect our property. That's all the county did. They said, this could affect you. You should know. If you want to come to the meetings, that's your business. If you don't, fine, we'll do it for you. The thing is there are people here in this room that have built houses, didn't have failing septic systems, but connected to the sewer. I'm pretty sure...
The current, as I understand it, and correct me, John, if I'm mistaken, but currently, in order to, and I think he just said that in order for you to receive sewer service from the City of Vista, you, for any new building constructed, you'd either have to show that, well, no,
Right.
you'd have to annex to the city.
Right. Well, has the irrevocable offer to annex policy gone away? Because all the
Yes,
people
it
I know
has.
around me, okay, so that's gone now. So we have no choice but to annex in order to get sewer. In order to annex, don't we have to be contiguous with the city? So I'm on the other side of the street. My back fence is Oceanside. Ben Hall's fence on across the street, his back fence is the City of Vista. So he can annex someday, but I can't because I'm across the road. I don't need the sewer. Fortunately, I have a good septic
Just a
system.
moment.
Yeah.
Mr. Conley, would you like to?
The plan, my understanding is that in order for us to address this issue of increasing density and including a new designation in our general plan update and planning for the future for the Sunset Island area, is that the whole area would annex into the city of Vista. So the only way that this can really work and work effectively from a planning perspective and be able to increase the density and provide services and make sure that it's all addressed appropriately would be to annex it under one application, address all of the fiscal impacts, have a master plan for that area of how it's going to be developed. That was the understanding that I was under in our discussions with Mr. Bradley and the group, that when we bring it back to the council at a future meeting date and agendize it, they've done some study and they have that analysis prepared and they're prepared to present it to the council as to what they'd like to do.
I have a question. So if the county passes their 2020 in September, when they're supposed to finally sign off on it, and they have higher density, and then Vistas comes along with their GP 2030 in January, if the county's GP 2020 had a higher density and yours was lower, wouldn't yours just overlay that anyway? Or couldn't you just stop any development by simply saying, well, you're not getting the sewer, so even though you have a legal lot, we're not going to let you connect to the sewer because you're not annexed, right? So I don't see how...
The way it would work is at the time you would go to subdivide it under the county's new rules, they would you would have to come to the city to get a letter of authorization for sewer service, and at that time we would be able to make a determination whether or not we'd be able to serve it with sewer.
So either way, you would still have
You wouldn't get
the
to the point
last
where you
say.
had a legal lot that you couldn't serve it. You would find that out before you got
Right.
your lot.
So either way, you have the control over what happens.
Correct.
Well, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding, what are you requesting tonight that we...
Well, we had an agreement with the county almost 7 years ago.
Mr. Bradley, would you
For
like
increased
to...
density. And
Please.
what he's after is, he wants to make clear that we get it on the agenda so that he can look at it again and look at the issues about this whole island becoming annexed to the city. So that people like me who are on the other side of the street can someday, when I want to build a house for my son and daughter, I could split mine today under the existing rules. I already have 3 shares of sewer. I'm fine.
Could we hear from Mr.
Yeah,
Bradley?
sure, go ahead.
please?
He's obviously upset about what the county has done, number one. Number two, he doesn't really understand.
What we're about to do, so...
Right. So, anyway, he doesn't really understand all the logistics of this. But basically, what John has indicated is exactly what I proposed, is that the Sunset Island, that you allow us to look at the Sunset Island, do a land use scenario or scenarios, look at sewer, and look at a plan that ultimately might be able to be annexed into the city of Vista as a group. If it doesn't get annexed into the city of Vista, it's going to stay just like it is right now today. It's in your sphere. It wants to be the city of Vista, just like the other man said. He considers himself a Vistan, and I think there's opportunity out there. If you drive out there today, it's eclectic. I mean, it's just all over the place. And it could be a lot better, but it needs somebody's help, and the county's not going to do it.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Just to clarify, Mayor, the reason that I asked him to come speak to the council tonight was because all of the input I've gotten back from the council on our general plan updates so far has been to maintain the 1-acre rural residential densities in our outlying areas that are within the sphere. That's the direction that I've heard to date in the presentations that I've given the council on land use. So if you're interested in considering changes to the density, I would like to know that so that I can schedule it for a future agenda item.
Speaking for myself, for this area, I would not have a problem changing this or to make it half acre. Where my problem comes is that, the long-term effects of annexation, the fiscal problems that come along with long-term, because what we require in an annexation is that you look at the fiscal responsibilities that you would have to pay for the services that you're going to receive. And over that long period, those only last for a specified period of time. 10 years. And then after that, then we've got an area we're providing service to. And in the long term, can we afford to do that as a city? Provide police, fire, and whatever else we have to provide. Because then you would no longer be in the fire protection district. You would be in the city of Vista, and we would have to provide, that service to you.
So at that point, like you wouldn't get reimbursed from the county? Is that how it works?
We
I
get
don't
no
understand.
reimbursement, we get no reimbursement from the
Okay,
county.
so now you get a reimbursement if the sheriff goes to the island.
Oh, we get absolutely no reimbursement. We don't get anything from the city.
So I don't see what the difference is. We have
Well,
everything
fire.
except sewer. Fire.
Fire, that's a big expense. Right now, you're in the Fire Protection District, which is, your service is provided by Vista, but you as landowners are paying for that. We're not paying for it.
So if we were part of the city, we wouldn't pay for
We
it?
lose that. We don't get
I
anything.
kind of thought that's what the taxes off the real estate would be doing.
You wouldn't be charged those anymore.
You wouldn't be charged that anymore.
So the city wouldn't charge, the city doesn't charge taxpayers for fire protection?
No, we don't.
Oh.
We don't. Everything that we pay for fire protection comes out of our sales tax, out of our property tax, and we only get 14% of the property tax. Everything we get from sales tax and property tax doesn't even pay for half of our fire and police services. So, that's what we have to look at in terms of annexing an area. Can we actually afford to do it and provide the level of service that everyone else in the city is getting? And so
Like
that's
you
why
said,
we've
I don't
had everyone take
understand all of this.
Pardon?
I'm just a guy. Like I said, I don't understand all this. I just know that if I call for the sheriff, somebody's dumping junk on the street in front of my house, the sheriff comes. If there's a fire, the fireman comes. I don't understand where the money goes. I just assumed that when we get all those increased property taxes, that money was going to the city, would be doing something.
No. Okay,
Thank
as far as, like I say, as far as the annexation, that's not a problem with me. But the annexation is, does the rest of the council want to bring this back as an agenda item?
I would.
I would like to bring it back.
But I have a couple questions.
I have a couple of...
All right, Mr. Campbell?
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting with these gentlemen, and I think I understand an underlying thing where some of us are aging, number one, and the future of nurseries and other types of agrarian enterprises is certainly being trampled by shortages of water, and water rates long-term will put you into a point where here you have a chunk of land, but what do you do with it?
Yeah.
My concern is one of, I think it's probably been echoed by the mayor clearly, is in my mind, and it's sort of a logical progression, and I've talked to Mr. Bradley about it, of drawing some lines when you come to us that would show a circulation element and the ability to handle it, and talk to us about densities, give us some fiscal analysis of what, and you could be, at the first stage, Mr. Conley, should it be formal, informal numbers, but numbers that you could analyze and say this is somewhat of what various densities would be in terms of impacts on sewer and water, then make sure that, in fact, those things have to be in place anyway. And I don't know what, to me, the 300,000 gallons, I think you said, Mr. Boyd, is not, there's plenty of capacity there.
Yeah.
I frankly don't know sewer from anything.
Yeah,
That's-
that
like
would-
you, I don't, this is-
Say if you could use every square inch of that area.
Well, that's part of the analysis.
Okay,
So
well,
let's
that's
not,
preliminary. Just
we
give
don't
me
need
an
to go into
idea.
it right now.
You could hit 70% of that.
Yeah, and I heard Granny Flats. I frankly, in my little head, think there's a perfect market for fairly nice parcels that have the ability to put a Granny Flat on them.
I think we have an agreement. Mr. Lopez, did you have a comment before we?
Real quick, getting late. I own property out there, I used to, and one of the biggest problems I had out there during that time was that people's sewers used to stink like a son of a gun out there, and it's all clay ground out there. And one of the things that if you do development and we annex, when they do the development, John, aren't they required to fix those roads,
They're required to build their frontage.
their frontage? So as they develop there, they will be fixing those roads, correct? Bring them up to standards?
Piecemeal, and they'll be paying us traffic fees for
Not the roads.
future. It won't be
I'm in support
contiguous.
of working with them, to see what they can come up with.
Well, I think I'm not in favor of supporting them or not supporting them. All I'm in favor of is bringing it back and taking a look at it after Mr. Bradley has done his work in terms of the fiscal analysis and all the other things that go into this as far as the city's concerned. Now, if you have a time frame that you say that we have to have this done by September, you ought to forget that, because it's just not going to happen.
Well, it actually becomes a moot point because anything you do later would overlay it anyway, so.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
we waited 12 years, we can wait a little longer.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for all attending. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
I guess it
Oh,
went over
yeah.
in there. I would like
Quickly, if you'd go over there to the...
I live there, I've lived there, my children have gone to Vista schools, I too consider myself a Vista. My name's Joe Bowen, by the way. Anyhow, the main issue for me is not just sewer, but it's 1 acre parcels that are just almost blighted. In my own property, not blighted really, but it's not maintained like it could be or should be because there's no either aesthetic or economic incentive to do it. I have 3 acres, not huge, and it wouldn't even be able to be built on that much, but the sewer, I smell it in the summer. I have actually seen fecal matter running down on the surface. I know 3 of them that have failed. 2 I know that have got effluent material on the surface. We can't get a sewer in. And no individual homeowner with just a 1 acre, I have 3 acres and could not even add a bedroom to my home because of the amount of septic system and reserve area that's required. It could be, even if it went down to one of the county ones was like a 1/4 acre. That's a good sized piece of property. It could be nice homes. It could be an asset to Vista. Right now, it should be an embarrassment. I'm semi-embarrassed, not that much, but it is, and I think there's good reason to at least let us present our point and put it on the agenda and let us speak to it.
Sorry, your name again for the...
Joe Bowen, B-O-W-E-N.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes oral communications for this evening. We'll go to reports from the staff and from the City Council. Mr. Piper, do you have any comments?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Geldert.
I'll be really quick. We mentioned earlier in the evening the Fire Station 1 grand reopening Saturday the 15th at 10 a.m. That's at 175 North Melrose. Also, we have after that from noon to 4 p.m. we have the Stunt Jam, which is professional skaters and booths, the street course for youth 18 and under. This is an idea of one of our sheriff's deputies to promote safety for all of our youth, and that's at 600 North Santa Fe Avenue. And there will be prizes. They pre-register and for schools, and so it's for kids 8 to 18. And I think it'll be an exciting day and time. We also wanted to mention that the Local Taxpayers and Public Safety Transportation Protection Act turned in approximately 1.1 million signatures last week, assuring us a slot on the ballot for a constitutional amendment. Counties now begin the process of validating the signatures, and the deadline is to count them all is June 24th. This will be protection for local property tax revenues, community redevelopment funds, future ones, unfortunately not the $6.5 million that we just lost, Proposition 42 funds, which we continue to lose, highway users tax funds, which are gas taxes, public transit funding, and local levy taxes such as parcel taxes, TOT, and we put in there anything that we think that the state can steal because they're getting very clever and trying to take more. Since the Superior Court judge ruled on May 4th, in response which attempted to invalidate the raid, we filed, CRA filed an appeal, but we had to continue to make the payments. Next year it was overall it's over $2 billion that the state receives, and it's just because the general fund cannot balance. They don't balance, they don't cut their programs. They've added staffs the last 2 years totaling of about 50,000 employees. So that's it, state budget. The income tax revenues are coming in lower than anticipated.
Income tax?
The income tax revenues into the state, and so they're which is going to make for a larger deficit, and they're going to be looking for more money from the cities. And so the governor is supposed to issue a May revise this Friday, after which budget negotiations should start becoming more serious. And our local Assemblyman Martin Garrick is now the Assembly Republican leader, so he should be playing a larger role in the budget process, and we'll continue to maintain contact with him to try to keep the state from further raids, borrowing, or delaying any of our funds. The update I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Ritter.
I don't really have anything.
And Mr. Campbell?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to note that we've lost one of our good associates who's been with us for many years, highly respected in the community, and that's Jeff Dolan. He's going to be sorely missed. I think some of us here have known him 20 years at least. Second point, I went on the Metropolitan Water run out to the Colorado River down to the border of Mexico and back in 48 hours. And it's very clear that water is going to become more of a tenuous issue going forward. We're going to have to look at tiered rates. We're going to have to look at revising our landscaping plan, which brought me back to Marguerite Morgan's fire safe comments. And I think we're going to have to do more as a city to encourage our citizens to do nice landscape planning within the constraints of water. And lastly, I'd like just to promote the YMCA and the schools getting funds from an event on May 15th, which is to be a jazz concert at the Moonlight. Tickets available through Vistix and other sources, but it's a great fundraiser for exactly what we were talking about, programs for our youth in the community, and hope we can all support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Thank you. Actually, there's two people who passed away this last week, with Mr. Dolan and Anthony Poole. Very, very, very respectful people in our community. I remember Mr. Jeff years ago when I used to raise draft horses, and we went out there to Temecula, and he happened to say, well, I'm going to go out there. He says, well, I'll be there with my horses. And he loved horses, and they have horses. And at that time, I had a team of horses that we were actually plowing some land out there in the Temecula area. And he was going alongside it with me, and I threw the lines to him, and he didn't know what to do. And next thing you know, he ended up plowing a field out there for half a day. He just really enjoyed it. So, a great man. Thank you.
And I have no further comments, and so this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
We got time. The next meeting.
Down the street here.
Can you call on Friday?
Young lady, be careful.